Our story kicks off with our main guy, Sun-joon, hitting the books hard at the library. Suddenly, his phone rings. Someone needs a lift. He tells them he'll be there in a jiffy and quickly packs up. As he's bolting for the exit, he spots a giant banner screaming, "We love you, Sun-joon." That's not all, there's a whole cheerleader squad putting on quite a show. A girl from the squad offers him flowers and asks him out. Quite a spectacle, right? Everyone's got their phones out, capturing the moment. But Sun-joon, cool as a cucumber, tells her he doesn't do dating and suggests she'd be better off hitting the books instead of chasing him. He strides off, stepping on the banner as he goes, and muses about how dating is more trouble than it's worth. He's got his mind set on landing a job before anything else. Meanwhile, our leading lady, Hani, is stuck at a class reunion that's more like a kiddie party. Kids are running amok, causing chaos. One little tyke, Hyunbin, is having a full-blown meltdown over a phone. Hani can't help but question the wisdom of his mom bringing the kids along. The mom's got her excuses. No babysitter. No help from the in-laws. Hani just nods sympathetically, trying to keep her cool. But when Hyunbin chucks a tantrum and kicks her, spilling her drink, she's struggling to keep her smile. She tries to placate him with some food, but he spits it out and kicks up another fuss. Through it all, Hani keeps her smile intact even when the mom suggests she hurry up and have kids of her own. As if things couldn't get worse, Hyunbin proceeds to throw up on her. Hani escapes to the bathroom, wishing she just stayed home with some comfort food and good TV. When she emerges, a classmate offers her a lift home. Grateful for an out, she accepts. Outside, Sun-joon's waiting by his car, chatting with his sis. She's asking after him, and he assures her he's fine before inquiring about her husband. She assures him they're fine too and drops a hint that Hani's been asking after him. Suddenly, Hani's friend steps out of the restaurant, and Sun-joon goes into full panic mode. He quickly ends the call with his sister, hides behind his car, and wonders what on earth he's going to do if Hani spots him. After all, she'd be sure to spill the beans to his sister. Sun-joon then pulls up the hoodie of his sweater, trying to hide his face. He clears his throat, sounding a bit hoarse, and tells Hani's friend that he's just the driver. He adds that he's got a little cold, and the friend hands over the keys without a second thought, telling him to keep his lips sealed during the ride. As they're cruising along, Sun-joon can't help but sneak peeks at Hani in the rearview mirror. He's curious about how she's been doing. Hani's friend announces that he's feeling woozy from too much booze and needs to take a nap. Hani merely nods and returns to her window gazing. Suddenly, she feels an unwelcome touch on her skirt. She swats away the hand, demanding to know what her friend thinks he's doing. Sun-joon catches the exchange from the corner of his eye. The friend mumbles an apology, blaming it on his drowsiness, and goes back to sleep. Hani shoots him a glare before returning to her window. But then, there's that hand again. She loses it, yelling at the friend and telling Sun-joon to stop the car. The friend brushes it off as another accident and drifts back to sleep. This time, Sun-joon spots the hand creeping up Hani's leg. Hani grabs the offending hand and bites down hard. Sun-joon slams the brakes, drags Hani out of the car, and confronts the friend. He tells him to go home if he's drunk. The friend turns belligerent, grabbing Sun-joon, who retaliates with a punch. He pulls down his hood, revealing his identity. Hani is shocked to see it's Sun-joon. Just then, the cops show up. Fast forward to the police station, Hani is fuming, explaining the situation to the police. She declares that if Sun-joon hadn't punched her friend, she would have. The friend whines about his possibly broken teeth, and Hani threatens to expose his behavior on their alumni page unless he settles the matter immediately. The police try to restore order and ask Sun-joon for his personal information. Sun-joon provides his name and social security number but stays silent when asked for his address. The cop asks if he's homeless. Sun-joon admits that he's been crashing in his classroom, leaving the cop and Hani stunned. He explains that it's either the classroom or a buddy's place, given his current circumstances. After the police station ordeal, Hani is dragging Sun-joon around the streets while he begs her to let him go. She grills him about why he moved out and whether his sister, Song-kyung, knows about his situation. He admits she does, and when Hani mentions they're going to see his sister, he panics. She assures him they won't be visiting tonight, but she'll call Song-kyung first thing in the morning. Se-jin tries to dissuade her, even suggesting they grab dinner instead, but she doesn't let up. In a desperate move, he pulls her towards a tree, trapping her between him and the trunk. He leans in close, asking why she always lets her guard down like she did in the car. He reminds her that he's not a kid anymore, then hesitates before asking if it's okay for him to stay at her place. Hani responds with a swift punch to his face, reminding him of the days when she used to scrub his back in the women's sauna. Embarrassed, Se-jin follows her home, wincing as she yanks him along by the ear. When they finally get to Hani's place, she can't help but wrinkle her nose. "You need a shower, Se-jin. You smell like a gym locker," she exclaims. Se-jin shrugs sheepishly, admitting he's been freshening up in the school bathrooms. He hands over his phone for charging and peels off his shirt right there in the living room. Hani blushes and turns away, her heart pounding as she plugs in his phone. She can't help but wonder when Se-jin got so grown up. It feels like just yesterday they were both in school uniforms. She gathers his clothes for a quick wash, trying not to dwell on the ripped muscles she glimpsed. Meanwhile, Se-jin's sister, Song-kyung, is on her way to Hani's apartment. She's chatting with someone on the phone about her next doctor's appointment, adamant that she won't give up on having a baby. She tells the person she'll be spending the night at Hani's place and rings the doorbell. Hani glances at the security camera and is surprised to see Song-kyung. As she moves to open the door, Se-jin pokes his head out of the bathroom asking who's there. Hani tells him it's his sister and reaches for the door handle again, but this time Se-jin stops her. She shoves him aside, but he insists that Song-kyung doesn't know he's moved out. Hani can't understand why he didn't just ask his sister for help, but Se-jin explains that he can't stand seeing Song-kyung tiptoe around her husband every time she helps him out. He wants to pay his own way through school and stop relying on his sister. As Song-kyung continues to ring the bell, Se-jin begs Hani not to let her in. Just then, Hani's phone rings. It's Song-kyung, who tells her she's at the door. Hani glances at Se-jin's pleading face and lies that she's at a friend's wake and won't be coming home tonight. Song-kyung asks who the friend is, but Hani insists it's someone she wouldn't know. Unfazed, Song-kyung says she'll stay over anyway and asks Hani for her passcode. Hani and Se-jin start to panic. Hani ushers Se-jin upstairs and pretends she can't remember her passcode. Song-kyung grows impatient and starts guessing random numbers. Hani suggests that Song-kyung should just go home since there's no food in the house, but Song-kyung insists on trying Hani's phone number or birthday. As Hani continues to stall, she and Se-jin frantically hide his belongings upstairs. Finally, Hani admits to Se-jin that her passcode is her birthday. Se-jin insists they need to stop his sister from coming in. Hani suggests they tell her the truth just as Song-kyung manages to unlock the door. Se-jin grabs Hani's hand and they both hide under a blanket. Song-kyung walks in, muttering about Hani leaving all the lights on and goes off in search of a phone charger. Hani whispers that Se-jin's phone is already charging and he quickly covers her mouth with his hand. They freeze as Song-kyung pauses, thinking she heard something. Underneath the blanket, Se-jin pulls Hani close. Her life had always been a monotonous routine, like running on a hamster wheel, but now Se-jin was the acorn jamming up the works. As he slowly removes his hand from her mouth, they lock eyes. Little did Hani know how much this fleeting moment would change her life. Song-kyung tosses her things on the couch and heads to the shower. As soon as they hear the water running, Hani and Se-jin, or Jun, as she calls him, make a break for it. Jun grabs his phone and forgets his shirt in their rush to leave. Song-kyung pokes her head out of the bathroom when she thought she heard something but finds the apartment empty. With a burst of laughter echoing in the lobby, Hani and Jun skid to a halt, panting heavily. A couple of bystanders shoot admiring glances at Jun's bare torso, commenting on his chiseled physique. One even cheekily suggests he must be mad to stroll around shirtless. Jun blushes, suddenly self-conscious. In a spontaneous gesture, Hani shrugs off her own shirt and hands it over to him. He hesitates before accepting it, asking if she isn't cold now that she's dressed in only a camisole and shorts. She dismisses his concern, suggesting they should probably find somewhere to go. When he wonders about money, she flashes her card and proposes grabbing a bite to eat. They end up in a cozy restaurant, where Jun devours his meal and knocks back drinks. He offers Hani some but she declines, surprising him with the revelation that she quit drinking. He recalls how she used to educate him about alcohol, even when he was underage. She chuckles, admitting that she's trying to cut back as she gets older. The conversation takes a serious turn when he asks if she plans to marry. She bristles at the question, reminding him that she struggles to even keep a plant alive. She reveals that she recently found a job, thanks to Sung-kyung, who happens to be her boss's wife. Despite being a contractor, Hani confesses she enjoys her life the way it is. Jun, refilling his glass, admits his fear of growing old alone. He doesn't want his sister to sacrifice for him, nor does he want his future child to have the same upbringing he did. He states his intention to settle his student loans, secure a steady job, save for a mortgage, and then consider marriage. He talks about his father and his desire to be a better parent. Hani teases him about being drunk, but he denies it. He confesses that he's been battling insomnia and hanging out with her has made him feel relaxed for the first time in a while. Suddenly, he slumps off his chair, fast asleep. Meanwhile, Sung-kyung, fresh from the shower, decides to do Hani a favor by doing the laundry. She is surprised to find men's clothes in the basket. Outside the restaurant, a sleeping Jun leans against a pillar while Hani wonders what to do next. When her phone rings, she's startled to hear Sung-kyung on the other end, questioning her about the men's clothes and whether she's secretly dating someone. Hani tries to pass them off as her own clothes, but Sung-kyung isn't convinced. Just as Hani denies any romantic involvement, a drunken Jun mumbles a request for another drink, which Sung-kyung overhears. Hani quickly hangs up, shaking Jun in frustration. She hoists the unconscious Jun onto her back, eliciting amused looks from passers-by. As she trudges through the streets, the sky opens up, drenching them both. Upon reaching a sauna, the attendant refuses to let them in due to Jun's state. Hani pleads with him to no avail and ends up sitting outside in the rain. She considers going home and confessing everything to Sung-kyung but changes her mind, fearing the misunderstanding that might arise from Sung-kyung seeing Jun like this. Hani nudges Jun, but he's out cold. The rain has stopped, but the chill in her bones won't go away. She's caught a cold, and she knows she can't spend the night on the streets. Just then, she spots a motel across the road. Hauling Jun up, she drags him towards it. The receptionist greets her with a weary smile, informing her that only the pricey jungle room is available. Hani shrugs, "I'll take it." The room is on the third floor, and Hani lugs Jun up the stairs, muttering complaints under her breath. As they reach the landing, a group of guys spills out from one of the rooms, and one of them blocks her path. She tries to sidestep him, but he mirrors her movements. Annoyed, she's about to snap at him when he calls her by name. "Dongjin?" she gasps, recognizing him. In her shock, she lets Jun drop to the floor. Of all the people and places, why did she have to run into Dongjin at a motel? Fast rewind to freshman year orientation, Hani and Sung-kyung were 18, bright-eyed, and eager. At a party, Hani had pointed out the handsome guys, chirping about college life and blind dates. Sung-kyung had been more practical, focusing on her scholarship, graduation, and taking care of Jun. But one guy had caught Hani's eye. Dongjin, strumming his guitar, had made her heart flutter. Back in the present, Dongjin gives her a small smile. It's been a while. He introduces his colleagues who are heading to a restaurant. When asked if Jun is her boyfriend, Hani quickly corrects him. He's a close friend, she stammers, struggling to explain the situation. Dongjin, however, steps in and hoists Jun up, asking for her room key. On entering the jungle room, Dongjin whistles at its size and quirky decor, placing Jun on the waterbed. As he prepares to leave, Hani stops him, apologizing for missing his wedding. She asks about his wife, only to be hit with the news of his divorce. Shocked, she drops the snacks he'd handed her. Alone again, she sinks to the floor, her mind spinning from the revelation. She grabs a bottle of alcohol, memories flooding back. She remembers being a senior, giving up job hunting to follow Dongjin's band. She used to write lyrics while they practiced, hoping to contribute. The band members had called her manager Hani and even read her lyrics aloud once. They were kind but pointed out that her words were a bit childish. All these memories rush back as she drowns herself in a drink, wondering where things went wrong. Dongjin had approached her about using her lyrics in their band's performance. Hani had refused, taking back her lyric book. She had planned to confess her feelings to him through the song she'd written. One of the girls from the band picked up a bottle of alcohol, intending to celebrate the upcoming performance with Hani's song. But before she could take a swig, Dongjin intervened, reminding her of his warnings about excessive drinking. When she resisted, insisting on disposing of the alcohol herself, Dongjin countered that it wasn't just her decision. Her question about him taking responsibility led to an impulsive marriage proposal from Dongjin. In response, Hani downed an entire crate of soju, blacking out. Waking up in the emergency room with her stomach pumped and the lingering smell of alcohol brought back the memory of that day. From then on, she swore off alcohol. Fast forward to the present, Hani is 3 bottles deep into soju again. Jun stirs awake with a throbbing headache, disoriented by his unfamiliar surroundings. Seeing the motel room, he panics, imagining Songkyung's reaction if she finds them there. A drunk Hani teases him for growing up so fast, prompting him to urge her to sober up so they can leave. She brushes him off, muttering about needing to speak to Dongjin. When Jun questions who Dongjin is, Hani drunkenly confesses her past feelings for him, claiming she never dated anyone else after letting him go. She rambles on about Dongjin, lamenting how she misunderstood his preference for sexy girls over nice girls. This revelation shocks Jun, who tries to reassure her that Dongjin simply had a different type. A tearful Hani questions her attractiveness, attempting to strike sexy poses while Jun tries to dissuade her. Overwhelmed by the sudden physical contact, Jun struggles to maintain his composure. He hoists her up, affirming her sexiness and urging her to sleep it off. As he lays her down on the bed, she accuses him of lying. She challenges him to a staring contest, reminding him of their childhood game where she could always tell when he was lying. Back when Hani was in middle school and Jun in elementary, Jun had lied to her about taking a poster. She had grabbed his face and begun counting to 10, a tactic to get him to confess. At the count of 5, she had squeezed his ears, making him admit his lie. Seeing the crumpled poster, Hani had attempted to chase after him, only to have Songkyung ignore their squabble and go back inside. In the present, Jun tries to stop Hani from counting, but she's relentless. His heart races as she blows air in his face at the count of 9, causing him to blink. Declaring victory, Hani is taken aback when Jun leans in to kiss her. But after the initial shock passes, she reciprocates, and they end up falling asleep in each other's arms. Hani wakes up the next morning, parched. Her heart skips a beat as she finds Jun asleep next to her. A blush creeps onto her cheeks as she tries to piece together the events of last night while Jun pulls her closer in his sleep, causing her to blush even more. As the memories flood back, she swears under her breath, mortified at the thought that she may have seduced Jun. She decides they must act like nothing happened. Carefully, she extricates herself from his grip and promptly falls off the bed. The noise wakes Jun, but by then, she's already out the door. Stepping outside the motel, she's still wearing Jun's clothes from last night when her phone rings. It's her best friend, Songkyung, and the call startles her. Songkyung asks if she spent the night with some guy, then announces she's leaving Hani's apartment. She advises Hani to use protection if it's just a fling, then hangs up. The realization hits Hani like a ton of bricks. She and Jun didn't use any protection. She rushes to the nearest pharmacy. Feeling awkward, Hani asks the pharmacist for condoms and a chongsimwin, a Korean over-the-counter medicine to relieve anxiety. As she's about to ask for the morning after pill, Jun walks in wearing her clothes from last night, also asking for chongsimwin. Seeing him, she bolts, but he calls her out on their clothing switch. After changing back into their own clothes, they sit outside a supermarket, eating noodles and sipping coffee. Breaking the silence, Hani asks Jun if anything happened between them, confessing she can't remember. He starts to apologize, but she insists there's no need. She's certain nothing happened, though she feels she should be the one apologizing. She warns him not to tell anyone about their motel night, especially not Songkyung. Jun asks if she really doesn't remember anything. When she admits she was too drunk to remember, he confesses he also can't recall the details. He asks if everything is still the same between them, to which she responds, of course. As she slurps her noodles, she suggests they just forget about the whole thing. But June isn't sure he can. It was his first time. He advises her to either quit drinking or only drink with someone she likes. Annoyed, Hani shoots back that she was just drunk and asks what his excuse is. He shrugs it off, reminding her that she supposedly doesn't remember anything and advises her to be more careful in the future. He finishes his coffee and stands up, mentioning he has to start his shift soon. As he leaves, she tells him to find a proper place to live instead of sleeping in classrooms. Life resumes its normal pace, but Hani can't shake the feeling that something's changed. They both throw themselves into their routines, trying to forget that night. Days later, at Donjin Books where Hani works, she reads the latest BL manga. A romantic scene reminds her of the motel night with June. She shakes her head, telling herself to forget about it. Her boss chides her for talking to herself at work, reminding her that her paycheck comes from their loyal readers. He then asks if he's leaving early for his wife, Sungkyung's birthday. He's about to dial his wife, wanting to inform her about a meeting he has, when she breezes into the office, cutting him off mid-sentence. She assures him there's no need, she doesn't plan on spending her birthday with him anyway. Instead, she suggests he let Hani off work early so they can hit the grocery store together. She adds that she's invited June for dinner, news that catches Hani off guard. His reaction to seeing June again is almost enthusiastic before he remembers his meeting. He volunteers to join them at the supermarket, but his wife stops him cold, reminding him of his other obligations. As he heads out, she calls after him, warning him not to be late. She then heads for his safe, while Hani asks if June knows she's coming. She admits he does, and she's just using her birthday as an excuse to feed him. She opens the safe and helps herself to her husband's cash. Hani reminds her that she already had plans for the evening, but Songkyung shoots her a look that says she better cancel them. Hani is left in a bind. The last thing she wants is to see June again. She warns Songkyung that her husband might get suspicious if too much money goes missing. Deciding it's best to keep quiet, Hani lets her take the money. After all, he already knows. One day, after seeing his wife take money from the safe again, he confronts Hani. He warns her not to let this continue or he'll fire her. Her response is blunt, daring him to do it. He backs down, joking that he can't believe her audacity given their situation. Then he accuses her of being the reason he and Songkyung are married. Hani wants to snap back, to tell him that if he hadn't been so persistent in college, Dongjin wouldn't have misunderstood, and Songkyung would never have married him. Instead, she advises him to talk to his wife and offer to help or change the safe's pin. His response is heavy with suspicion, unsure if Songkyung married him for love or money. Hani tells him Songkyung feels insecure because he doesn't want to try for kids. Regardless, he believes it's too soon to give up. He asks Hani to keep his wife's theft a secret and continue reporting to him if she wants to prevent their divorce. Songkyung closes the safe, complaining about her domestic responsibilities. Despite having no parents or children to take care of, her husband still won't pay for his brother-in-law's tuition. She promises Hani she'll take responsibility if they get caught and urges her to continue altering the financials. Hani suggests she ask her husband for an allowance, but Songkyung adamantly refuses. She apologizes for her outburst, ashamed that Hani has to see her like this, and breaks down thinking about her brother. Hani comforts her, reminding her that she only has a job because of Songkyung. She should be the one feeling guilty, she thinks, considering she's playing both sides. She suggests they leave and promises to cook June's favorite dishes. Songkyung hugs her, expressing her gratitude. As Hani locks up, Songkyung tries calling June, but he doesn't answer. Hani assures her he's probably studying. Meanwhile, June sees his sister's call, ignores it, and goes back to reading his book, The Last Emergency to Success, while lying on a hospital bed. A doctor announces it's their last day and they'll be taking blood samples in an hour. The doctor adds a quick note before they leave: if they decide to bail before the trial wraps up, they'll be kissing that sweet compensation goodbye. June's buddy groans from his bed, clutching his gut and moaning about wanting to hurl. June rolls his eyes, telling him it's all in his head, and he just needs to tough it out for another hour. His friend grudgingly agrees, reminding himself that they're on the cusp of scoring $800. Suddenly, June's phone buzzes with a text. It's a job interview invite, scheduled between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. on the 14th. He quickly asks his friend what day it is, and his heart sinks when he hears it's already the 14th. A glance at the clock shows it's 4:05 p.m., leaving him less than an hour. His friend, meanwhile, lurches out of bed, struggling with his nausea. Without wasting a second, Jun bolts from the hospital, hailing a cab straight to the interview. He arrives just as the interviewers are packing up, grumbling about the lack of quality candidates. One of them, a stern-looking man, tells Jun that the interview session has ended and reminds him of the importance of punctuality. Jun quickly explains his late notification due to poor reception and pleads for a chance. A female interviewer flips through the applicant profiles until she finds Jun's. She invites him to sit, and he thanks her profusely, bowing in gratitude. Suddenly, he belches. She raises an eyebrow, asking if he's okay. He brushes it off, blaming it on nerves, and she proceeds to ask him about his perspective on working life. Caught off guard, Jun struggles to answer. He'd spent the night cramming on current events, his major, and the company, not this. The male interviewer calls his name, prompting him to answer. Jun is at a loss. What kind of question is this? What kind of answer are they expecting? If he doesn't land this job, he knows he'll be in debt. The woman asks him if he's finding the question tough, and he denies it, wondering whether they want a sincere, witty, or rapid response. Would it be a deal-breaker if he admits he just needs the money? Would a textbook answer sound too fake? Suddenly, he feels nauseous again. The woman observes his discomfort, asking if he's feeling unwell. He denies it, attempting to answer the question, but instead of words, his lunch makes a surprise reappearance. Meanwhile, at Songkyung's house, she and Hani are setting the table when Jun calls. Songkyung excitedly answers, only to be let down when Jun tells her he can't make it due to a last-minute assignment. Inside, Hani breathes a sigh of relief, mentally repeating, "Please don't come." Songkyung hangs up, telling Hani about Jun's cancellation and wondering what to do with all the food. She decides to visit Jun, convinced something's off based on his voice. She worries he's not eating right. Hani suggests it's late and she should visit another time, secretly wondering if Jun has found a new place. Just then, Songkyung's husband stumbles in, drunk. Songkyung berates him for drinking on her birthday. He starts explaining but then insists that a man should be able to enjoy a business drink even on his wife's birthday. With a dramatic flair, Songkyung hurls her birthday cake in her husband's direction. This sets off a screaming match between the two, while Hani quietly gathers her belongings and sneaks out. All this drama has left her stomach grumbling, she hadn't even had a bite to eat. As she approaches the elevator, the doors begin to close, but Songkyung manages to stop them with her hand. She thrusts a bag of food into Hani's hands. Initially, Hani thinks it's for her, but then Songkyung clarifies it's for Jun. With her husband in his current state, she can't deliver it herself. Songkyung pleads with Hani, giving her the big puppy dog eyes, and insists that she take the food to Jun. She even sends Hani Jun's address and phone number. Meanwhile, Jun is settling into his makeshift bed in a classroom, reflecting on his lousy day. He missed out on $800 from the trial, wasted $50 on a cab, and flubbed his interview. On days like these, he thinks it's best to hit the sack early. His phone rings, and seeing Hani's name on the screen, his cheeks flush pink. Hani had imagined that their reunion would be awkward, that she'd put up a cool facade. But watching Jun devour food like there's no tomorrow, she can't help but question the carefree guy in front of her. She urges him to slow down, to which he responds that birthday food is always the best. He then asks if she really took the bus all the way to his school at this late hour. As she pours him a coffee, she explains that she couldn't refuse Songkyung's pleading and hands over the coffee, questioning if he's found a place to stay yet. Dodging her question, Jun offers her a piece of food. She refuses, brushing off his attempt to change the subject and blaming her queasy stomach on car sickness. As she continues to feel nauseous, she wonders if it's something she ate. Jun drops his chopsticks, asking if she thinks it could be morning sickness. Her reaction is immediate, she jumps up, angrily denying any possibility of pregnancy, and insists that her discomfort is due to overeating and car sickness. She then swiftly grabs her bag and heads out. Jun tries to accompany her, but she tells him to stay and calls Songkyung. Over the past few days, Jun found himself missing Hani and becoming curious about her. He tried to play it cool, acting as if nothing happened, but he was so anxious that he couldn't even look at her or ask how she's been. Reflecting on his chaotic interview and current state, he resolves to pull himself together and focus on job hunting. Hani finds herself camped out at a bus stop, her mind whirling with the implications of Jun's question. She chuckles to herself, dismissing his concern as an overreaction. Her period is just around the corner. But then, she pauses, pulling out her phone to check the date. Her heart sinks when she realizes she's late. In a flurry of panic, she recalls asking for the morning after pill and curses herself for not taking it. She bolts from the bus stop, sprinting towards the nearest pharmacy, only to find it's already closed. Undeterred, she races to another one, then another, and another, each one locked up tight. After her fifth failed attempt, she slumps on the pavement, winded and worried. Elsewhere, Jun's world is filled with dreams of dragon gods and magical pearls. In his sleep, he converses with the dragon god, who presents him with 2 pearls. When Jun insists they aren't his, the dragon god praises his honesty, gifting him the precious gems. Elated, Jun imagines selling them to pay his tuition fees. But then, the dragon god vanishes, and one of the pearls transforms into a fish, leaving Jun startled. His dream ends abruptly with him waking up in the library, startling his friend from the clinical trial as he demands his pearls back. He broods over the dream, unsure if it's a good or bad omen. His friend suggests it could be a sign of good news about his interview. Jun scoffs at the idea. His interview was a disaster, and he's sure he didn't get the job. As the sun rises, a pharmacist unlocks her shop, only to be ambushed by Hani, who pleads for a pregnancy test kit. The day draws on, and Jun finds himself sketching the fish and pearls from his dream, musing over their meaning, when he gets a message he's landed the job at the cosmetics company. Overjoyed, he leaps up, startling the library patrons with his cheer. Meanwhile, Hani emerges from her bathroom, staring blankly at the positive pregnancy test before sinking onto her couch. The news hits her like a ton of bricks, leaving her reeling. Days later, Song-kyung receives a call from Hope Gynecology Clinic. She's not pregnant. She hangs up, feeling a pang of disappointment, only for her spirits to be lifted by another call, this one from Jun. He's got a job and is coming over for dinner. He encourages her to invite Hani, hinting that he has big news to share. Song-kyung rings Hani, who declines the dinner invitation, claiming she has other plans. When asked if she's seeing someone, Hani denies it and questions Jun's sudden visit. Song-kyung teases her about Jun's amazing news and insists she must come even if she's late. As Hani hangs up, she finds herself surrounded by expectant mothers in the waiting room of the clinic. She stares at her phone, wondering how to handle her situation. She remembers Jun's insistence on being fully prepared before marriage and can't bear the thought of burdening him or facing Song-kyung with this news. As the other women share stories of the challenges they face during pregnancy, Hani is left contemplating what her future holds. The women around Hani moan about how having a kid practically obliterates your chances of landing a job. But when one of their babies kicks, they all coo and gush over the little one. Hani finds it baffling. She's certain she won't go through with it. She's no rich, successful single woman. She barely scrapes by, struggling to take care of herself, let alone a child. She mutters to herself that she isn't equipped to be a mom. Her name rings out in the clinic, signaling her turn to see the doctor. As she rises, she steels herself, vowing to stand firm in her decision. In the doctor's office, the doc hits her with the news she's 3 weeks pregnant. The doctor calls her lucky, explaining that her low estradiol levels suggest her ovaries aren't performing their best. Getting pregnant naturally, she says, is a miracle. If Hani chooses not to keep the baby or miscarries, conceiving again might prove challenging. But she soothes Hani, assuring her that artificial insemination is always an option and has a high success rate. Later, Hani finds herself in a park, replaying the doctor's words until darkness falls. A text from Jun snaps her out of her thoughts. They meet at a cafe, where Jun excitedly presents her with a gift, announcing his new job. Overjoyed, Hani congratulates him, grabbing his hand, and speculates that Song-kyung must be thrilled. He modestly mentions it's just an internship, but to Hani, it's a step forward, and she hopes he lands a full-time position. As she puts two and two together, she realizes why Song-kyung insisted on a dinner invite. Then Jun drops another bomb, he's moving to China. He reveals that he told Song-kyung, who burst into tears, so he left before she could make a scene. The company promised him an immediate full-time position if he applied to the international division. Hani's grip on her cup tightens as she asks when he's leaving and how long he'll be gone. A couple of years, he tells her. He implores her to look after Song-kyung while he's away, reaching out to touch her. Hani pulls back, reminding him that Song-kyung has Deokjin. Jun wishes her well and hopes she finds someone good for herself. She presses him on what he means by good, leading him to admit he means someone like her. Hani forces a smile, telling him to take care while he's away. Days later, at Hope Gynecology Clinic, Song-kyung is back for another round of fertility treatment. The doctor walks her through the process, asking if she can handle it. She assures the doc she's an old hand at this. After her appointment, she calls her husband, warning him to accompany her next time or face his mother's wrath. As she heads out, she spots Hani in the reception area, which leaves her stunned. Hani tries to make a swift exit, but the nurse calls her back for her forgotten sonogram. As Hani heads back, claiming she must have dropped it, Song-kyung intercepts her, demanding to know what's going on. Before Hani can spin a tale, Song-kyung snatches the sonogram from her hand. In the confined space of Song-kyung's car, she's examining a sonogram, brow furrowed. She throws a glance at Hani, asking if the baby daddy is the guy she'd been spotted with at the bar. Hani shakes her head, denying it, which only serves to raise Song-kyung's voice. She demands to know who the father is. Hani retorts, blurting out it's not the guy next door, referencing the title of a boys' love manga she'd been engrossed in at work. Immediately, she wonders why that particular phrase popped into her head. Song-kyung, misinterpreting her words, asks if the father is her neighbor. Hani mumbles a yes, adding that they've parted ways. Song-kyung questions whether she'll be raising the child solo and begins to suggest she reconnect with the baby's dad. Hani interrupts her, exclaiming that he's moved out. When Song-kyung prompts her for his contact number, Hani reluctantly admits he's gone abroad for studies. Concern washes over Song-kyung as she queries Hani about her plans. Hani confesses she doesn't want the baby, doubting her ability to cope. Song-kyung opens up about her own struggles, revealing her ongoing fertility treatment due to a malfunctioning fallopian tube. This catches Hani off guard, as she recalls Song-kyung mentioning artificial insemination but backing out because it was too taxing. Song-kyung corrects her, stating she abandoned artificial insemination years ago but has been undergoing IVF treatments since then. Despite 4 attempts, she's failed to conceive, which takes Hani by surprise. She hadn't known, and Deokjin hadn't mentioned it either. Song-kyung admits Deokjin has lost interest in having kids, but she still yearns for one. Convincing him has been an uphill battle. She confesses to Hani that her guilt over their situation prevents her from directly asking Deokjin for money for Jun's tuition. She feels like she's all Jun has left, and she can't abandon him. She labels herself a terrible person, admitting the hardest part is hiding her exhaustion and pretending everything's fine. She knows if she shows any signs of crumbling, Deokjin would advise her to quit trying. Her voice breaks as she tells Hani how much she loves children, confessing her envy despite knowing it's wrong. Song-kyung urges Hani to consider discussing her situation with the baby's father instead of making decisions alone. She offers her support, promising to stand by Hani. But she warns Hani that if she chooses to abort the baby, she might not be able to forgive her. That night, Hani reflects on the doctor's words and her intense conversation with Song-kyung. Her eyes fall on Jun's gift, and she decides to open it. Inside, she finds a necklace with the engraving, K Sarah Sarah. A week later, as Song-kyung and Deokjin help Jun load his luggage into the car before heading to the airport, Song-kyung hands Jun some food and a first aid kit. While she chats with him, he dials Hani's number, but she doesn't answer. Song-kyung advises him to let Hani be, mentioning she's not been feeling well. When Jun inquires about Hani, Song-kyung brushes it off, musing whether Hani's sleeping in due to pregnancy fatigue. Jun attempts to call Hani again, but there's still no response. Song-kyung rushes him along, urging him not to miss his flight. Finally, Deokjin hands Jun a copy of the Boy Next Door manga for his plane ride. As June flips through the pages, he discovers an envelope tucked inside with a note that reads, "Didn't have time to exchange the currency. Use it when needed. P.S. Keep this a secret from your sister." Touched, June tries to respond, but Deokjin simply winks at him, advising him to take care of the bestseller book, while Songkyun hollers for them to get in the car. As the car rolls away, June cranes his neck, hoping to catch a glimpse of Hani. But when Hani does show up, it's too late, they're already gone. Hani, left in the dust, stomps her way home, her mind swirling with thoughts. In her heart, she knows June's departure doesn't alter anything. On her way back, a quaint flower shop catches her eye. She stops in her tracks, her gaze fixated on a rosemary plant. As she stares at it, memories of her conversation with June about marriage trickle back, and tears start to well up. The florist, noticing her, asks if the scent of rosemary is appealing to her. She turns to him, asking why people buy these plants. He shrugs, assuming she's just been dumped, and suggests that maybe it's because they're simply beautiful. Hani questions him further, asking if it could really be that straightforward. The florist nods, saying that sometimes the simplest things hold the answer. Hani looks back at the rosemary, admitting that she's no green thumb. If anything, she's the grim reaper of plants. They'd probably have lived longer, happier lives if she'd left them at the store. She ponders out loud whether it would be better not to grow one at all, given her track record. The florist, hearing this, asks her if the plants don't bring her joy. He admits that yes, they could die, but if they thrive, they'll bloom beautiful flowers and even bear fruit. He tells her that if we let fear stop us from trying, we'll never witness the beauty that tomorrow holds. He encourages her to touch the rosemary, saying it loves human contact. As Hani reaches out, the sound of a plane overhead grabs her attention. She glances up, deciding then and there to give the plant a shot. Fast forward 2 months to Beijing. June is parked in the underground lot of Smile Home Shopping, munching on his lunch as he waits for someone to exit the building. The day before, he'd overheard his boss and his boss's boss discussing their plans to break into the home shopping industry, lamenting the need for more funding from headquarters. His boss's boss had instructed his boss to arrange a meeting with the MD before they head back to Korea. But getting in touch with the MD is a challenge. His boss's boss didn't want to hear it, though, and insisted on having the meeting arranged within 3 days. Once the big boss left, June's boss turned to him, instructing him to secure a meeting with the MD by any means necessary, even if it meant stalking. He warns June not to engage the MD, but to call him so he can do the talking. June was taken aback, asking his boss if he was serious. His boss pointed out that June was a single guy in his 20s while he was a family man in his 30s, asking June if he thought it would be better for him to be waiting around instead of going home to his wife and kids. Now, June sits in his car, staring at the MD's photo and wondering how much longer he'll have to wait. As he reaches to turn up the heat in his car because of the cold, another car rear-ends him. He gets out, rubbing his sore neck, and inspects the damage to his car, a sizable dent. A girl steps out of the other car, speaking in Chinese, asking if he's okay. The beautiful girl hands him her card, apologizing for the rush. When the girl hands him her card and starts to walk away, June grabs her hand. He tells her that he's in a bind. The car isn't his, it's a company car, and returning it with a dent would land him in hot water. She asks if he's Chinese, and he shakes his head, admitting he's Korean. To his surprise, she invites him to follow her in Korean. He asks if she speaks Korean, and she nods, explaining as they step into an elevator that she picked up a bit during business trips to Korea. June nervously asks where they're going. Applying lipstick, she admits, in broken Korean, that she's running late for a show. But if he waits, she'll make it up to him. She introduces herself as Yenapang. As they pass by a massive banner of Smile Home Shopping featuring her photo, June follows her in. Turns out, Yenapang is a record-breaking sales host for Smile Home Shopping. In just 3 years, she became the #1 host, known for selling out entire product lines. Yenapang leads June to the event she's hosting, where the MD hurriedly ushers her on stage. Thanks to Yenapang, June smoothly transitions to life in China, spending the next 4 years there. Back in Korea, Hani is at her mother's gate, pleading for her to open up as heavy snow falls around them. Songkyun urges Hani to call it a day, worried about the cold affecting the baby. But Hani persists, begging her mother to hear her out. When the gate finally opens, it's Hani's father who steps out. Surprised, Hani asks when he returned. He shares that he came back after hearing about her mother's collapse, which brings Hani to tears. He tells her he stands by her mother's decision about the pregnancy. She needs to bring the baby's father into the picture. He insists they won't speak to her until she does, and advises her to go home. Despite Song-kyung's pleas, he gently pats her shoulder and retreats indoors. Hani shakes the gate, assuring her father that she can raise the baby herself. She begs for them to listen. Song-kyung holds her as she sobs. Hani points out that she accepted their decision to live separately for the past decade, so why can't they accept hers? Song-kyung offers to let Hani live with her. She even spoke to Deokjin about it. Hani can stay in Jun's old room and she won't be alone. This touches Hani. Song-kyung reminds Hani of how she has always been there for her in tough times, like when her dad passed away. If it hadn't been for Hani, Song-kyung admits she wouldn't have been able to keep going while taking care of Seonjin. She assures Hani that she is family. Then she shouts loud enough for Hani's father to hear, promising she'll take care of Hani. On the other side of the gate, Hani's father silently thanks Song-kyung. Tears well up in his eyes as he thinks of the guy who had the audacity to leave the country after getting his darling Hani pregnant. Over in Beijing, Jun is locked onto the show's opening scene. Yenapeng is front and center, showcasing a moisturizing face mask. She slathers it on her face and even gives her arms a swipe to prove its full body benefits. The crew on set are all gaga over her. They're convinced that Yenapeng's charm will make the product fly off the shelves. Whispers float around that everyone wants a piece of her success. Yenapeng is basically a star in her own right. Jun can't help but marvel at the power she wields. One word from her sends the phone lines into overdrive. If only she could work her magic on his company's products. Meanwhile, in Korea, Song-kyung is on the phone with Hani, urging her to pack up and come over for dinner. Hani, still sniffly from the cold she caught earlier, declines. She insists she can manage on her own. Song-kyung challenges her, asking if her ego is really worth more than her health right now. Hani's about to be a mom, after all. She needs to face reality. But Hani is reluctant to impose. Just before, Hani's dad had asked Song-kyung for her bank details. He wanted to send some money each month for his daughter's upkeep, but only under the condition that Hani stays in the dark until she reveals who the baby's father is. Song-kyung spills the beans to Hani that Deokjin has invited her to move in with them. He wants her to rest and recover so she can get back to work after having the baby. This news both touches and surprises Hani. On the other side of town, Deokjin pulls up at a red light. His mind wanders back to the morning he spotted Hani and Jun leaving a motel. They looked suspicious, and he couldn't shake off the feeling that something was up. Now, with Hani's pregnancy, the timing seems to line up. He can't just sit back and let her struggle alone, especially if she's carrying his potential nephew or niece. He's certain Jun wouldn't have jetted off to China if he knew about the baby. But what if he confronts Jun and it turns out Jun isn't the father? Or even worse, if he is the father, Song-kyung would be livid when she finds out. Deokjin decides it's better to steer clear of the drama. It's not his problem, after all. Back in Beijing, as the show wraps up, every single product has been snapped up. Yenapeng wraps up the show amid cheers and applause, snapping Jun back to reality. He needs to find the MD. He scans the room, but the MD is nowhere in sight. Yenapeng beckons him over, and he trails behind her, trying to catch her attention. She assures him she'll call the insurance company about their earlier fender bender. Jun quickly clarifies that he doesn't need money, he needs to meet the MD. Yenapeng raises an eyebrow, accusing him of staging the accident to get a meeting. Jun reminds her that she was the one who rear-ended him, earning a quick apology from her. As she steps into the elevator, she shrugs, saying she can't help him. He tells her he'll go look for the MD himself, but she informs him that the MD has already left for his next meeting. With a heavy sigh, Jun follows her into the elevator. Yenapeng looks at him and asks if he really knows what he's getting himself into. She tells him the market is like a shark tank, and the little bit of cash he get for his car doesn't hold a candle to the kind of money that changes hands just to get a meeting with the MD. She then throws out a word in Chinese that translates to amateur, which gets under his skin. He's half tempted to give her a piece of his mind, remind her he's been around the block a few more times than she has, but he bites his tongue. She checks in with him again, making sure he doesn't need a hospital visit. She doesn't want any future headaches, after all. He waves her off, saying a call to the insurance company will do the trick. Just then, the elevator grinds to a halt, and they're plunged into darkness. Yenipeng starts hammering on the doors, hollering for help. He tries to soothe her, assuring her the lights will be back on any minute now. But she's scared, like really scared. She confesses she's terrified of dying. He's about to reassure her when the elevator gives a sudden judder. Fast forward a couple hours, they're sitting on the elevator floor, their phone's the only source of light. They can't even call for help because there's no signal. Yenipeng voices out loud her fear of dying trapped in the elevator. He responds that he doesn't plan on kicking the bucket with a stranger. He's pretty sure help is on the way, even though he's shaking in his own boots. She asks him his name, saying she wants to know who she might die with. He calls her out, saying it's odd how someone who rakes in hundreds of thousands of dollars on live TV can get so easily spooked. She admits she's a bit of a scaredy cat, then lets out a sneeze. He hands over his jacket, introducing himself as June. He suggests they grab a bite once they're free. She takes the jacket, promising to introduce him to the MD if they make it out alive. That bit of news brightens his mood. Just then, the elevator lurches again, and she grabs onto him in fear. As if on cue, the doors slide open. Meanwhile, back in Korea, Hani is tucking in for the night at Songkyung's place. Songkyung tells her that she had kept June's room just as he left it, but maybe it was meant for Hani all along. Hani asks about June, and Songkyung assures her that he's doing fine. She mentions that June has been asking about Hani since she never answers his calls. She advises Hani to give him a call when she can. Hani asks Songkyung to keep her pregnancy under wraps from June. Songkyung agrees but warns her that June will find out eventually. Back in Beijing, thanks to Yenipeng, June's team scores a meeting with the big shot MD. In a huge win for the little guys, they secure the primetime slot on home shopping for their product launch. This propels them into the Chinese market, and even 5 months later, sales are still going strong. Over time, June and Yenipeng start hanging out on weekends to practice their Chinese and Korean, becoming fast friends in the process. At one of their regular weekend hangouts, Yenipeng tosses June a grin and tells him she loved the Korean book he'd given her. She sets down a BL manga on the table and asks if he's read it. June shrugs, saying he only got halfway through, but truthfully, he devoured it during a bout of boredom. Yenipeng teases him, asking if he's into guys. He turns beet red and vehemently denies it. He explains that the manga was actually a project from his brother-in-law's company and translated by a buddy of his. Yenipeng can't help but laugh, calling him adorable. She asks who this friend is, and he says it's a mutual friend of his and his sister's. Yenipeng gives him a suspicious look and repeats a friend in Chinese. Meanwhile, over in Korea, Hani, now 7 months pregnant, is toiling away at work. Songkyung, who's been waiting for her to finish up, questions if she really needs to be working so hard in her condition. Hani explains to her that she's going to be a single mom, so she has to have some income. Songkyung suggests that Hani keep working after the baby's born and let her babysit, theorizing that being around a baby might boost her own chances of getting pregnant. She also promises to stash away the money she earns from babysitting to give to June when he ties the knot. Suddenly, Hani winces in pain. Songkyung asks if she's alright, and Hani tries to brush it off as nothing. But before she can finish her sentence, another wave of pain hits her, causing Songkyung to insist they head home. Hani tries to assure her again that she's fine, but then she topples off her chair, leaving Songkyung shouting her name in alarm. In Hani's dream, she's thrown into this surreal scenario where a little girl is bawling her eyes out and calls her mom. Now, Hani, still a teenager in her dream, is all like, "Wait, why am I your mom?" And the kiddo just wants a hug. But Hani's like, "Hold up, I'm still figuring out my own life," and tries to back off. The situation escalates with the girl crying even harder, and Hani, in full panic mode, tries to escape only to bump into her own mom. Her mom's not having any of it and tells Hani it's time to face the music. She's a mom now, which totally throws Hani for a loop. Fast forward, and we see an adult Hani coming to terms with the title mom. Cut to reality, Hani wakes up to find her actual mom and Song-kyung by her side, diving straight into apologies. But her mom is quick to snap her back to reality, especially with a contraction hitting Hani like a truck. Amidst the chaos, the doc barges in, insisting on moving Hani to surgery because, surprise, it's a risky preemie situation. As she's wheeled away, her support squad, including her dad and Dokjin, can only wait, while Song-kyung shouts words of encouragement. Meanwhile, over in Beijing, Yenaping's phone is blowing up, but she's just not feeling it. Jun's curious if she's ghosting someone, leading to a heart-to-heart where Yenaping lays it all out. She's into Jun and proposes they give dating a shot. Jun's hesitant, fearing a future split might cost them their friendship. Yenaping pulls a bold move with a kiss, setting the stakes. If Jun feels nothing, they stay pals, anything more, and they're officially an item. Jun, torn, opts for friendship, leaving Yenaping to walk away, heartbroken. As Yenaping exits, Jun's left wrestling with his feelings, haunted by a past fling with Hani and why she's now MIA on his calls. He suspects she might have moved on, given her history of ghosting when involved with someone else. Despite the confusion and unresolved feelings, Jun is determined not to jump into something he can't fully commit to, reflecting on his choices and what they mean for his relationships moving forward. Right off the bat, Jun's phone lights up with Soo-kyung's name. Without missing a beat, he's like, "Everything cool?" as soon as he picks up. Soo-kyung's on the other end, playing it cool, asking how he's holding up and tossing in a sorry for being MIA lately. Jun cuts to the chase, wanting to know about Hani. Soo-kyung nearly drops the phone. "Oh wait, what have you heard?" Jun's confused, just wants to know why Hani's ghosting him. He throws out there, "She finds someone special or what?" And Soo-kyung hits him with, "Oh, she's got someone all right. Someone who'll steal your heart the minute you meet." And just like that, she hangs up. Jun's left talking to himself, thinking he's been played for a fool. If Hani's moved on, where does that leave him? Out of nowhere, Yenaping pops back in, all about second chances because, surprise, she's still got the feels for Jun. He admits he felt something too, and bam, they're on a new journey together. Fast forward 3 years, and we're in Korea. Cut to this adorable scene at the hospital where little Ran is giving everyone a run for their money, literally. She drops her ball, and it rolls over to this guy in a wheelchair. The guy, being a good sport, picks it up. Over at the reception, Hani and Soo-kyung are having a classic kids will be kids chat, with Hani mentioning Ran's a bit of a night owl. Turns out, they're there because Ran took a tiny tumble off the bed under Soo-kyung's watch. No biggie, though, just some bruises. Soo-kyung's in mini panic mode when she realizes Rance pulled a Houdini. Meanwhile, Rance making friends with the wheelchair guy, passing him a candy for his troubles. As Hani calls out for Ran, the little adventurer makes her way back, pointing at her new friend. Hani catches a glimpse of the guy rolling away, something about him ringing a bell. Soo-kyung's relieved to see Ran safe, and as they're getting ready to head out, Hani's mind's on Jun, wondering if that was him. Soo-kyung's skeptical, saying Jun's been off the radar, swamped with work. Little do they know, wheelchair guy is Jun, his life turned upside down after a rough month in China. All his dreams, including being a dad, seem shattered. Just a month ago, he was chillin' with Yenaping, brushing off her concerns about a business trip set up by a guy with a crush on her. He had half-jokingly asked if she expected him to throw down with her travel buddy just to make her happy. Yenaping couldn't help but chuckle, teasingly questioning if a hint of jealousy was creeping in. "Why act like it doesn't bug you?" she playfully prodded. Jun laid it out straight. "Look, we might have had our thing for a month, but past is past. How do you expect me to be cool with you jetting off with Mr. Raccoon over there?" Yenaping's response was swift and bold. Why not give their relationship another shot? She assured him she was single now. But Jun, sticking to his guns, expressed his preference for simplicity in relationships, valuing loyalty and dedication above all else. Yenaping, unfazed, insisted that despite her dating history, she's looking for the one, just like anyone else. Rewind to 3 years ago, Yenaping, slightly tipsy and at a bar with a guy she was seeing, decided it was time to call it quits. The guy, seeking closure, suggested a farewell kiss to cherish the memories. Meanwhile, June, minding his own business biking home, nearly crashes when he receives a photo of Yenapeng locking lips with someone else. Then, out of nowhere, he's approached by a guy inquiring if he's the June from Korea, leading to a rather emotional confession about not being able to live without Yenapeng. Following that encounter, June found himself in a bizarre situation where men kept coming up to him, some hostile, some in tears, and others hurling insults. He confided in Yenapeng that he'd rather take a beating than witness such scenes. Yenapeng, clearly frustrated, explained that she had ended things with these guys and was clueless about how they got to June. She also mentioned that some were merely fans whose affection she didn't reciprocate. Yenapeng accused June of being closed off, to which he internally disagreed. Witnessing these confrontations made him realize how much Yenapeng was adored, recognizing her need for love. Despite her warning that he was on the verge of losing her, and her hints at a possible proposal during her business trip, June couldn't suppress his jealousy. He proposed she return to Korea with him, but she refused. Acknowledging his inability to handle a long-distance relationship due to his jealousy, June suggested a platonic relationship, likening Yenapeng to a younger sister, a comment that did not sit well with her. Days later, during a meeting with a man Yenapeng traveled with, June discovered that his proposal had been rejected. The conversation awkwardly shifted back to work matters, only for June to be blindsided by the man's denial of any prior agreement regarding a new product broadcast, leaving June in utter disbelief. June found himself in a bit of a predicament, trying to remind a colleague about their previously agreed-upon deal. You know how these things can go, what's agreed upon in one moment can suddenly become hazy memory the next. Unfortunately for June, when he tried to press the issue, the conversation took an unexpected turn. The colleague, rather than acknowledging the agreement, decided to up the ante with a bet involving Yenapeng. Now, that's corporate rivalry with a personal twist. Back at headquarters, the atmosphere was tense. The stakes were high, and June's boss made it crystal clear, the China branch was on thin ice, and if this deal fell through, it would spell disaster for everyone involved. It was one of those moments where the weight of responsibility feels both humbling and heavy. June, feeling the heat, committed to doing whatever it took to ensure the branch remained operational. Driven by a mix of determination and frustration, June opted for an unconventional approach. He hit the streets, setting up a makeshift stall to sell their products directly to consumers. It was a bold move, showcasing a blend of entrepreneurial spirit and sheer willpower. This grassroots effort attracted attention, both positive and negative. While customers were drawn to his pitch, two individuals saw his presence as an infringement, leading to a confrontation that unfortunately ended with June in the emergency room. On the flip side, Yenapeng faced her own set of challenges. Her business partner, unhappy about the unfolding events, threatened to sever ties, which could have detrimental effects on their program. In a display of quick thinking and negotiation skills, Yenapeng managed to turn the situation around. She secured an exclusive contract, ensuring their company maintained its competitive edge, all while advocating for June's company in the process. In a moment that felt like it was straight out of a modern-day fable, June found himself in the grips of a vivid dream. There he was, face to face with a dragon god who was all about doling out life advice. The main takeaway? Happiness is something you've got to chase down yourself, it won't just land in your lap. Typical dream stuff, right? But it resonated with June, leaving him with plenty to ponder as he navigated his waking life. As reality snapped back into focus, June was greeted by the not-so-comfortable reality of his situation, underscored by a significant amount of discomfort. Yenapeng, ever the voice of reason, suggested upping the painkillers, a practical solution for an immediate problem. It was clear from the get-go that June's situation warranted more than just temporary fixes. Enter June's boss, who, with a mix of concern and pragmatism, steered the conversation towards a more durable solution: surgery back in Korea. The revelation of needing an artificial testicle threw June for a loop, a curveball he wasn't expecting but had to catch nonetheless. The situation escalated when June learned about Yenapeng's bold move to sign an exclusive contract to secure a deal for his company. It left him in a bind, wrestling with gratitude and guilt. Here was Yenapeng, making significant sacrifices, and June couldn't help but feel conflicted about the implications of her actions. Fast forward to the surgery in Korea, the procedure went as planned, but it left June staring down the barrel of potential infertility, a daunting prospect to say the least. Despite the uncertainty, there was a silver lining. The situation wasn't a permanent one. After the doc took off, Jun was left stewing in his own thoughts, worrying about how he might never get to be a dad and his frustration over work. His boss dropped in with some less than stellar news. Despite snagging that primetime slot, sales were kind of a letdown. To make matters worse, their rivals decided to crash the party with similar products, kicking off a full-blown price war. When Jun pressed for details about HQ's take on the debacle, his boss laid it out. HQ was looking for a fall guy, and guess who they picked? Jun. The conversation took a nosedive from there. Jun brought up the verbal agreement they had, but his boss was more focused on the extra workload caused by Jun's injury. He tried to play the sympathy card, mentioning his own kids and how Jun, still young, could bounce back. But Jun wasn't having any of it. "I'm 31, he shot back, laying bare his frustrations about being single, barely scraping together a security deposit after paying off his student loans, and feeling like his 20s just zipped by. The past 4 years? Poured into the company, and now this? His boss, probably sensing Jun was at his breaking point, dangled the severance pay again, hinting it was better than walking away empty-handed. The call ended with a promise to ship Jun's stuff whenever he wanted. But for Jun, that was the last straw. His phone met the floor with a thud, a casualty of his boiling anger. And just like that, all the stress and pent-up feelings came rushing out. It's not like Jun had sky-high ambitions, his dreams were pretty down-to-earth. Pay off his loans, secure a little nest egg, maybe find someone special, and start a family. After meeting Ran, the idea of being a dad wasn't just a nice thought, it felt like a calling. But here he was, sacrificing his best years for a brighter future, only to end up with a body that felt broken. Back in the present, Jun's caught up in a moment of reflection, wondering about the trials and tribulations he's faced without ever really knowing what lay ahead. As he observes the ants bustling through the hospital garden, a sudden realization hits him. Maybe this journey wasn't the one he had envisioned for himself, but it's high time he gives himself some credit. He's ready to embrace life's simpler joys, to live a little more freely. And with that, he decides it's time for a fresh start, beginning with a break from work, a new haircut, and a clean shave as he prepares to head home in search of happiness. Switching scenes, we find Song-kyung and Deokjun at the zoo with Ran perched atop Deokjun's shoulders. Amidst their leisurely day out, Deokjun suggests waking Hani for dinner, but Song-kyung opts to let her rest, redirecting their attention to the animals, much to Ran's delight. Suddenly, Song-kyung's phone rings with an unknown caller on the other end. It's Jun, surprising her with the news that he's right outside her apartment. A mix of shock and annoyance bubbles up as she scolds him for not giving her a heads up, all while accidentally letting go of Ran's balloon. She guides Jun to her apartment, sharing the passcode for entry. Inside, Hani is awakened by the commotion of Jun's arrival. Hearing the shower and suspecting Song-kyung couldn't have returned so soon, Hani investigates, only to find unfamiliar clothes and shoes strewn about. Approaching the bathroom door with caution, she's startled by the sight of Jun's suitcase, mistaking the occupant for a thief. In a panic, she arms herself with an umbrella, poised for confrontation, only to freeze when Jun steps out and greets her by name. The tension dissolves into an emotional reunion. Hani, overwhelmed, questions why Jun is there, tears streaming down her face as Jun warmly declares he's back for good. Meanwhile, on their drive home, Deokjun and Song-kyung mull over Jun's first meeting with Ran and the dynamics between Hani and Jun. Despite Deokjun's playful nudging for Song-kyung to make herself up for Jun's return, Song-kyung insists there's no need for formalities among family, though she realizes she forgot to inform Hani about Jun's comeback. Back at the apartment, Jun and a flustered Hani sit across from each other, navigating the awkwardness of their reunion. Jun chides her for not reaching out during his absence. She sidesteps his question, diving straight into asking about the company's situation. He hints at waiting for everyone to arrive before explaining, and she instantly senses trouble brewing. As he inquires if she's just visiting her sister, she drops the bombshell that she's actually been living there, squatting in his old room. Curious, he wonders about her place and where he's supposed to crash now. Despite her protests, he barges into the room, now a playground of toys and books. Amidst her frantic tidying, he spots a picture of Ran, sparking his curiosity about the familiar-looking child. Jun can't shake off the feeling he's seen Ran before. Hani reluctantly introduces Ran as her daughter, leaving Jun reeling. Before he can dig deeper, Song-kyung and an excited Ran burst in, sharing tales of a zoo adventure and initiating a warm family hug. The conversation quickly turns to why Jun hasn't married yet, with Song-kyung playfully chiding him, much to his embarrassment. Song-kyung's casual mention of Jun not knowing Ran sends him into a whirlwind of questions about Hani's marital status and whether he's been left out of the loop. As they all gather for dinner, Jun drops the bomb that he's resigned, aiming for a break filled with home comforts and family time, despite the initial shock and confusion it causes. The mood shifts to lighthearted as Deokjin arrives with supplies for a feast, suggesting they kickstart Jun's sabbatical right away. Amidst plans for a sibling night out, Jun finds solace in little Ran's company, stunned to realize she's the child he once met in the hospital. The revelation leads to more questions, but as the grill heats up and wine is sought, Hani whisks Ran away for a bath, leaving Jun amidst a whirlwind of emotions and unanswered questions. Leaning back, Jun starts piecing together Ran's age puzzle. He casually asks Song-kyung about Ran's birthday, getting May 25th as the answer. Then, he dives into some mental gymnastics, comparing dates and possibilities. If Ran was his, he figures, she'd have a July birthday. Memories of a teary Hani lamenting over a man during a drunken night flash through his mind. Was that guy the father? Did he leave Hani to marry someone else, or did Hani not even realize she was pregnant then? Jun remembers asking Hani about morning sickness once, and her reaction was almost like she had no clue. Curiosity piqued, he probes Song-kyung about Hani's mysterious husband, learning he was the neighbor but gets a talk to Hani for anything more. That's all the nudge Jun needs. He announces he's stepping out, leaving Song-kyung and a newly arrived Deokjin questioning his sudden interest in Hani's past love life. As Hani steps in, wondering where Jun's vanished to, Deokjin, ever the playful uncle, suggests to Ran they should go find him, hinting maybe Hani should be the one to actually do it. Despite Song-kyung's suggestion to wait for Jun's return, Hani decides to take up the search. Meanwhile, Jun's at the playground, lost in thought on a swing. He's stuck on the idea Hani might have left Ran's dad because he was a divorcee. He can't help but wonder if he's somehow to blame, feeling like he missed something major. Then Hani finds him, and they dive into a heart-to-heart. Jun's all over the place, asking Hani about their past, questioning Ran's dad's whereabouts, and whether the guy even knows he has a daughter. Hani tries to explain, hinting she didn't cling to Ran's dad as he was moving on. Jun's mind races, mistakenly thinking Dong-jin must be the dad, but Hani swiftly corrects him, trying to ease his worries. She grabs his hand, asking if he still dreams of fatherhood. His no hits her hard, especially when he adds he doesn't believe he has the right to be a dad anymore, silently admitting to himself it's because he can't have kids. He mentions he's thinking of using his time off to figure out what he really wants to do with his life. Hani gets up, mentioning she's cold and heading inside. He offers to join her, but she snaps at him not to, catching him off guard. When he reaches out to her, she pulls back, complaining of a headache and asking him to come by later. He watches her go, mulling over the thought that her anger might mean she broke up with Dong-jin because of him. Back home, Song-kyung gives him a bit of a scolding for taking off as she's setting up dinner. He inquires about Hani and Ran, learning Hani's putting Ran to bed. Deokjin hands Jun a glass of wine, curious about his chat with Hani. Song-kyung interjects, saying there shouldn't be anything new for them to discuss, but Deokjin playfully suggests there's plenty for two old friends to catch up on. That earns him a slap from Song-kyung. Jun just wanted to know about Hani's husband, he explains. Song-kyung shares that the guy was Hani's neighbor but went abroad, and now she can't find any info on him. Jun starts pondering if he should look for Ran's dad, while Deokjin wonders if he should get involved. Song-kyung tells Jun to eat and asks where he plans to sleep. She suggests the sofa for now, wondering aloud about their living arrangements since the house is crowded and she can't ask Hani to leave. Deokjin jokes about kicking Song-kyung out so he and Jun can share a room. Meanwhile, Hani, lying in bed with her daughter, sheds a few tears. Late at night, a tipsy Jun gets up to use the bathroom and ends up sleeping next to Hani and her daughter by mistake. The next morning, Song-kyung barges in, waking them and demanding Jun leave the room. In the living room, Jun, now on his knees, apologizes for the mix-up, getting scolded by Song-kyung. Hani steps in, reminding them it's actually Jun's room. She then surprises everyone by suggesting she should move out soon, thinking it's time to give Jun his room back. She internally apologizes to Song-kyung, feeling guilty for overstaying. Despite her readiness to leave, Song-kyung insists Hani stay till her apartment lease is up at year's end, even though June returned early. June breaks the news that he's thinking of moving out soon, hoping to crash with Song-kyung until he figures out his next move. Song-kyung, not having any of it, tells him to zip it and focus on job hunting instead. She's baffled by his plan to dip into his savings while jobless, urging both Hani and June to drop the topic. She then nudges Hani, reminding her they're running late. Hani gets up to give Ran a bath, leaving June to ponder if his moving plans are pushing Hani away. He decides he needs to find a new place stat to avoid causing more stir. Wandering the neighborhood later, June is hit by sticker shock at the local housing prices. Mulling over a potential move to the suburbs, given his tight budget, he strolls past a daycare named Kids Land. Realizing it might be Ran's daycare, he takes a peek over the fence. Spotting Ran, he tries to catch her attention but ends up chatting with another kid instead. This kid, after hearing June's inquiry about Ran, labels her as the kid with no dad, leaving June stunned. As the boy fetches Ran, June reels from the comment. Ran, recognizing June, excitedly asks for a lift home. When June suggests waiting till daycare ends, Ran bursts into tears, prompting him to hop the fence and comfort her. During their interaction, the same boy returns, questioning June's relation to Ran. Despite Ran's claims of having a dad, the boy taunts her, leading June to defensively tap the boy on the head, claiming he's Ran's dad. This escalates quickly, drawing a teacher's attention. Faced with an inquiry, June asserts he's Ran's father, a statement that confuses the teacher and deeply moves him. Meanwhile, Hani's at work, pondering her living situation, when she's blindsided by a call from Ran's teacher. The teacher reports an incident involving Ran's father, who allegedly struck a child, sparking outrage from the child's mother. Hani is shocked, unable to fathom who could have posed as Ran's father. Next scene, June meets up with a real estate agent to snoop on who lived next to Hani about 4 years back. The agent's like, "Dude, how am I supposed to remember anything from 4 years ago?" But June's all, "Please, it's super important." The agent, rubbing his temple, mentions it's been ages since those records were relevant and kind of hints that June's being a bit of a pain. While half complaining, the agent checks his computer and spills that apartment 706, the one next to Hani's old place, has been empty for ages. Describes it as a bit of a dump, really, but when he mentions it's cheap, June's ears perk up. "How cheap are we talking?" he asks, suddenly interested. Switching scenes to Ran's daycare, Hani's there smoothing things over after June's little incident. The teacher's actually apologizing back, saying the other kid started the waterworks and that the mom's not pressing it. Then, out of nowhere, she starts raving about how much Ran looks like her dad, aka June, leaving Hani awkwardly laughing and wondering what June's up to. At dinner time, Ran refuses to eat unless June does the honors. When he steps in, she eats like there's no tomorrow, leaving Hani and Song-kyung speechless. Post-dinner, Hani's in the bathroom fretting over Ran getting too attached to June when her phone rings. Meanwhile, June's tucking Ran in on the couch when Song-kyung comes in, warning him not to play dad unless he plans to stick around. She's worried about Ran getting hurt in the long run. June can't help but defend how adorable Ran is, prompting Song-kyung to suggest he quit his break, get a job, and settle down. Their chat gets cut short when June whispers about moving out soon, shocking Song-kyung enough to drop her bottle. That's when Hani walks in, announcing she's got her housing sorted so June can have his room back. This leads to a bit of a standoff, with Song-kyung threatening them dramatically until they promise to visit every weekend. Fast forward a week, and June's moving out as planned. Hani figures it's for the best, hoping for some peace and quiet. She moves out a few days later too. While cleaning her new place, she chats with Song-kyung on the phone, who's venting about Deokjin being MIA again. Hanging up, Hani asks June, who's been helping her clean, if he's up for some jjajangmyeon, and he's totally on board. As she's scanning the menu, trying to decide how much food to order, June heads for the door. "Where are you off to?" she asks, a bit puzzled. He tells her he's just going back to his place to freshen up and that she should go ahead and order. He'll be back in 10 minutes. Before she can even react, he's out the door. She dashes after him, only to find the hallway empty. Then, out of nowhere, he pops his head out from the apartment next door, saying, "Don't forget the sweet and sour pork," before disappearing again. Hani's left standing there, mouth agape, as it dawns on her that Jun is now her next-door neighbor. When the food finally arrives, Hani watches Jun get everything ready, feeling a mix of nervousness and confusion. She's trying to figure out what to do with him living so close when he suggests they keep things neighborly, helping each other out like in the old days. She questions why he moved without giving her a heads up, and he simply responds, surprise. He also makes her promise not to tell his sister, wanting it to be a surprise for when she drops off Ran later. Hani's mind races, thinking about how she moved to avoid Jun, but now finds a strange sense of relief knowing he's next door. Their calm moment is broken when Jun starts to pour sauce over the pork. "What are you doing?" "We need to dip it," she exclaims. Jun insists on pouring, leading to a playful argument over dipping versus pouring. They lock eyes in a standoff until Jun backs down, letting her dip to her heart's content. Trying to lighten the mood, Hani teases him about being sulky and offers to split the dishes so he can pour his sauce. As she wipes some crumbs from his face, she jokingly calls him a kid, then pauses, noticing for the first time the similarities between him and Ran. Jun bats her hand away, saying, "Stop it," and goes back to pouring his sauce, declaring, "Men bulldoze." In response, Hani flicks a piece of radish pickle at him, sparking a playful chase that ends with her hiding under her bed covers, giggling and apologizing. Jun pulls the blanket away, and they tumble off the bed, landing in a heap, faces flushed and hearts racing. They share a nostalgic moment, reminiscent of their childhood games of hide-and-seek with Song-kyung. Just then, Jun feels a sharp pain where he had surgery, causing him to wince. Hani, concerned, offers to help, thinking it's just indigestion. But as she tries to rub his back, he insists she stop, pleading internally for her not to touch him. Misunderstanding his reaction, she gets upset, asking if he thinks she's a pervert and tells him to go home. As she starts clearing up, Song-kyung calls to say she's arrived with Ran. Jun makes his way downstairs, catching Hani's attention. "Was that Song-kyung who just left?" he asks. He then tells her he's heading back to his place, but if his sister shows up looking for him, Hani should bring her over for a surprise visit. Hani, concerned, asks about his earlier discomfort. In response, Jun pulls her into a hug, apologizing for his outburst and promising it won't happen again before he heads out. In the elevator, Song-kyung, with Ran in tow, can't help but eye the blonde woman standing with them, silently wondering if she's someone famous. When they reach the 7th floor, where Hani lives, the blonde Yenapeng also steps out and heads straight to Jun's door, ringing the bell. Song-kyung, now outside Hani's apartment, rings the bell too, curious about Yenapeng being possibly a neighbor. Hani opens the door, hoisting an excited Ran into her arms. Song-kyung's about to ask about Jun when he suddenly pops out of his apartment yelling surprise, only to freeze at the sight of Yenapeng instead of his sister. His gaze flits between a shocked Song-kyung and Yenapeng. Song-kyung, surprised, questions Yenapeng's identity as Jun gets hugged by Yenapeng, who exclaims she finally found him. Once everyone settles in Hani's apartment, Song-kyung airs her grievances about Jun not informing her of his move next door. Jun tries to lighten the mood, asking if it's not a pleasant surprise. The conversation shifts to Yenapeng and how she knew where to find Jun, leading to a confession from Yenapeng about her efforts to track him down due to his unresponsiveness. Song-kyung, whispering to Hani, speculates on the nature of Jun and Yenapeng's relationship, to which Hani agrees there seems to be something. Yenapeng introduces herself, crediting Jun for her Korean skills, which earns Jun a pointed look from Song-kyung. Yenapeng then mentions teaching Jun Chinese, prompting Song-kyung to tease him about hiding his acquaintance with such a beautiful friend. Ran, feeling jealous, tugs at Jun's shirt, declaring him as her daddy, which surprises everyone. Jun reassures Ran, causing a bit of a stir, but Hani decides to intervene, taking Ran away as she cries for her daddy. Song-kyung tries to clarify the situation to Yenapeng, who finds Ran adorable and likens her to Jun, much to Song-kyung's amusement. Song-kyung, seizing the moment, suggests Jun take Yenapeng out, offering her car for their use. As Yenapeng and Jun leave, Song-kyung comments on Yenapeng's manners and looks, while Hani, holding Ran, remains nonchalant about Yenapeng's profession. Back in Jun's apartment, Yenapeng checks on Jun's well-being. He assures her he's fine and inquires about her. Yenapeng reveals her concerns about Jun quitting his job because of her, but he reassures her it was for other reasons, urging her not to worry. Yenapeng, however, confronts him about lying, sharing her realization of her feelings for him after his departure. Yenapeng throws a curveball at June, suggesting they might have to call it quits on being just friends, and even muses about relocating to Korea for him. But June's quick to shut that down, pointing out how much she digs her current gig, not to mention his own health has seen better days, making the whole relationship thing a no-go for him. Yenapeng, undeterred, floats the idea of hooking June up with a job, while casually brushing his shoulder, assuring him that his physical state doesn't faze her one bit. They share this loaded glance, and just as Yenapeng leans in for a kiss, June's hit with a wave of pain down there. Trying to keep it together, June twists away as Yenapeng checks in on him, guessing correctly that it's his surgery site acting up. When she offers to take a look, June's face goes all shades of red. He gently rebuffs her, suggesting a moment to regroup before he drops her home. Over at Hani's place, Rand's dropping some heavy feels, wishing out loud to shack up with Daddy June. Hani does her best to set the record straight, explaining that June's actually her uncle, not dad. The conversation quickly turns into a tearjerker, with Rand apologizing and Hani admitting to a bout of jealousy. They exchange heartfelt assurances, promising no more tears or talk of missing Daddy. Right then, the doorbell rings and in walks June with Yenapeng, looking for Song-kyung's car keys. Hani tries to play off her puffy eyes as nothing more than a big yawn, but June's not buying it. He probes, worried something's up with Ran. Hani brushes him off, though Yenapeng's watching this exchange like it's primetime drama, picking up on vibes between June and Hani that maybe even they haven't clocked yet. As Hani fetches the keys, Yenapeng can't help but quiz June about his and Hani's connection, right as Hani walks back in. June shushes Yenapeng, takes the keys, and reassures himself about Rand before being ushered out by Hani, with Yenapeng tagging along, already planning their next visit. Meanwhile, Song-kyung's making her way home, mulling over the day's events, when a chat with Rand's teacher drops. The teacher shares how Rand's been on the up and up since her dad swung by. Song-kyung corrects her, June's the cool uncle, not dad. The conversation takes a turn when the teacher pitches setting Hani up with her recently single brother, piquing Song-kyung's interest. Later, Song-kyung's on the phone trying to sell Hani on this blind date idea, but Hani's having none of it, even with the guy reportedly being a hit with kids. Song-kyung pulls out all the stops, but Hani stands firm, ending the call. Left alone, Hani glances at the clock, noting it's nearing midnight and June's still out. The next morning, Hani's phone buzzes her awake. It's Song-kyung on the line, immediately diving into apologies, which has Hani sitting straight up. Song-kyung spills that she might have set Hani up on a blind date for noon at a local cafe, convinced Hani would be cool with it. Hani, not so cool with it, pushes back, but Song-kyung, in her persuasive way, begs her to give it a shot. When Hani wonders about Ran, Song-kyung suggests roping in June for babysitting duty and tells Hani to glam up before swiftly ending the call. Next, Song-kyung rings June, who's groggily dealing with the aftermath of last night. She quickly instructs him to watch over Ran, ignoring his questions and hanging up. June, grumbling about Song-kyung's abruptness, gets ready and is taken aback when Hani shows up at his door, looking stunning. She asks if he could watch Ran for a bit. When she mentions the blind date, June hides his surprise, casually advising her not to stay out too long. Hani quips about his late return the previous night, shutting down any explanation from him and heads off, bumping into Yenapeng on her way to the elevator. Yenapeng throws a compliment Hani's way before darting back to June inside the elevator. Hani can't help but wonder if she's still capable of feeling butterflies. Meanwhile, back at Hani's place, June settles in with a still sleeping Ran. Yenapeng, curious, quizzes June about their resemblance, even joking about Ran potentially being his daughter. June laughs it off but seems intrigued by Yenapeng's observations about their similar features. At the cafe, Hani waits past noon, getting ready to leave when Dongjin unexpectedly calls out to her. They shake hands, both revealing they were waiting for someone. Deciding to wait together, Dongjin awkwardly brings up their last motel encounter, leading to a blush from Hani. Conversation flows, and Dongjin admits he's there for a blind date, mirroring Hani's reason. The realization that they are each other's dates dawns on them. Back in Hani's apartment, June is trying to reach Song-kyung, pacing with worry. When Song-kyung finally picks up, June bombards her with questions about Ran's birth, specifically if she was premature. Song-kyung, puzzled and a bit annoyed by the timing of the call, confirms Ran's prematurity and wonders why June's asking. Song-kyung's on the line with June, laying down the law about not pestering Hani, especially now since she's out on a blind date. Jun's curiosity gets the better of him, and he tries to pry into Hani's whereabouts, but Songkyung's having none of it. She suggests Jun focus on Yenapeng instead, maybe even take her out on a date. Jun, clearly not satisfied but hitting a brick wall, ends the call and starts dialing Hani's number in a frenzy. Meanwhile, Yenapeng's watching Jun with a mix of confusion and concern, especially after his reaction to the whole premature baby talk. She reckons there's a lot Jun's itching to find out. Cut to Hani and Dongjin, who are deep in nostalgia over their college days. Dongjin throws a curveball, asking Hani about their first meeting, and she spills the beans about falling for him at first sight, instantly wishing she could take the words back. Dongjin's taken aback, admitting he had no clue. Hani tries to brush it off as ancient history, confessing he was her first love. Dongjin's pretty chuffed by the revelation, telling her his heart's just starting to flutter. Back at Hani's place, Jun's still on the phone marathon, getting nowhere. Yenapeng tells him to give it a rest and wait till Hani gets home. That's when Ran wakes up, mistaking Jun for her dad, which hits him right in the feels, admitting through tears he's her dad, not her uncle, and pulls her into a hug. Ran's next announcement is a bathroom emergency, prompting a swift reaction from Jun. Yenapeng's trying to piece together the puzzle, convinced Jun's playing the dad card because Ran's just too adorable. She refuses to buy into the theory that Ran might actually be Jun's daughter, thinking if it turns out true, Jun could just play the financial support card. But deep down, she's ready to fight for Jun, regardless of the new developments. Over at the cafe, Dongjin and Hani's trip down memory lane takes a twist when Dongjin mentions how everyone thought she was off the market back in college, thanks to Deokjin. Hani clarifies that Deokjin ended up with her friend, not her. Dongjin reflects on all the missed opportunities because of those rumors. Their chat takes another unexpected turn when a man approaches Hani, introducing himself as her actual blind date, throwing suspicious glances Dongjin's way. Just then, Dongjin's phone buzzes, and a girl nearby calls out to him, revealing herself as his real date. She questions why they've been together for an hour, leading to some awkward explanations. Dongjin ushers Hani to go on with her date, whispering they'll catch up later, and Hani whispers back in agreement. Her date is clearly miffed she didn't hang around waiting for him since he was running late. He jumps to conclusions, asking if she was with another guy. She's not having any of it and fires back, saying Dongjin was just an old college buddy and points out the cheek of him being all accusatory when he rocked up an hour late. He tries to brush it off with a cocky sorry and suggests they hit up another spot. She's like, nope, got to get back to my kid. He tries to play it off like she's making excuses because apparently, she's his type and insists on grabbing a bite. Despite her protests, he's set on heading to a restaurant he's booked and starts walking off. Meanwhile, Dongjin's got his own drama unfolding. While keeping an eye on Hani, his own date's hinting at a second meetup, but he's politely bowing out. Then, in a twist, he stops Hani from taking off with her less-than-charming date, leaving her pretty stunned. He gets all serious, saying bouncing now would be a major regret for him. Cut to Hani's place, where Yenapeng's doing a cute hairdo for Ran and talks about wanting to bond by hitting the amusement park together, promising cotton candy and toys. Jun's there but mentions he'll have to leave soon. Just then, Songkyung walks in, and Ran's all excited. Songkyung's thankful to Yenapeng for watching Ran and nudges her about going on her date with Jun, looking all intense, demands the blind date location from Songkyung, who's baffled by his sudden interest. He blurts out it's because he can't reach Hani and has something crucial to discuss. After a bit of back and forth, he drops the bombshell that he might have found Ran's dad, snagging the location out of a shocked Songkyung. Back at the cafe, things are heating up. Dongjin's trying to convince Hani to stay put, which is when his date, fed up, drenches him and storms off. Hani's date is lost, wondering what on earth is going on. Hani feels bad, saying she can't leave with him. Dongjin, trying to play the peacemaker, ends up taking a punch meant for his face. Meanwhile, Jun is frantically trying to reach Hani, piecing together the puzzle about Ran and reflecting on their past interactions, particularly about why Hani might have kept her distance after getting pregnant. He's overwhelmed, shouting in the street, drawing stares. As rain starts to pour, everyone but Jun seeks shelter, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Later, in Dongjin's car, Hani's patching up the cut on his face from when her date decided to throw a punch. Dongjin can't help but laugh about the whole mess, which kinda throws Hani for a loop. He's like, did not see that coming. First time getting socked since my army days. Hani starts apologizing because, well, it's kind of a weird situation, right? But Dongjin flips it on her, saying he's the one who should be sorry. Then he gets all serious and tells her his heart did this little skip when he saw her again. It's like all these feelings he thought were done and dusted came rushing back. And Hani? She's feeling all sorts of things because here's someone looking at her like she's more than just a mom or an ex, but her first love. It's exciting but also makes her feel guilty because of Ran. Dongjin's squinting, trying to figure out how he's gonna drive home half-blind, and Hani's like, do you even drive? Turns out, he needs a lift to the glasses store. Hani lets slip something about nothing house and then clamps her hand over her mouth, embarrassed. Dongjin's quick to jump on that, teasing her about driving in the rain and hinting they should head to his place for some ramen, and yeah, we all know what that means. Hani's shocked, not expecting that from him. Cut to June, who's at the cafe freaking out because Hani's MIA. When she finally picks up his call, he's all, where are you, like it's some kind of emergency. Hani's worried, thinking something's up with Ran. Dongjin's ready to play hero, offering to drive her wherever she needs to go. Just as Hani hits the gas, there's June, blocking their way like a scene from a movie. Hani steps into the rain, confronting June about Ran. He drops the bombshell, asking if Ran is his kid. That's a curveball for Hani. Meanwhile, Dongjin's out there too, holding an umbrella over Hani like some knight in shining armor, totally clueless but trying to help. Hani brushes it off, telling Dongjin to hang tight in the car. She's trying to dodge June's questions, insisting now's not the time or place. June's desperate for answers, but Hani's firm. They'll talk later. As they're about to leave, June's still shouting, wanting answers. Hani, though, she's done. She drives off, leaving June in the dust. On the way to fix Dongjin's glasses, he's curious if June's her brother or something. Hani's not in the mood to chat, parking abruptly. Dongjin, ever the joker, hands her his umbrella, making light of the situation. He then pitches the idea of a second date as an apology. Gives her this cheesy line to ask him out with. Hani can't help but ask if he's always this quirky. Dongjin's like, why don't you date me and find out? Meanwhile, June's sitting in the rain all drenched, looking a mix of confused and scared. Just then, Hani steps in, umbrella in hand, suggesting they head back and have a proper chat. June's full of questions, wondering if Hani kept Ran a secret because he wasn't trustworthy, too young, or maybe because he's her friend's younger brother. He thinks she should have clued him in. Hani crouches down, explaining she didn't want to dump all this on him, wanting him to live his life freely. But June, he's not having it, smacks the umbrella out of her hand. He's like, how can you even say that? How can I just ignore all this when I'm Rant's dad and you're my dear friend? He's torn about what to do next, move away, never see them again? But then he takes a breath, calms down, and apologizes for kicking things off on such a rough note, pulling Hani into a hug. He's sorry she had to go through the pregnancy alone, thankful for Ran, and declares Ran as his one and only daughter. He's ready to jump into action, find a part-time job for child support. Hani pushes back, insisting he shouldn't feel pressured, reminding him of his excitement about his sabbatical. But June's got a plan, suggests they live together. Hani's response? She freaks out and starts hitting him for even suggesting it. June tries to explain he just wants to make things work financially, but Hani's not easily convinced. She tells him straight, he's Ran's father, not a man to her. And June feels the same way. He pitches the idea of being a sort of live-in nanny, taking care of Ran, cooking, cleaning, all while contributing financially. Hani's tempted, not gonna lie. But she points out, this would mean the end of his precious sabbatical, betting he'd bail in a few days anyway. June argues he'll still have plenty of alone time when she's at work and Ran's at daycare. He even promises to clear things up with Song-kyung. Hani wishes they could just keep pretending and avoid telling Song-kyung altogether. June's frustrated, how could they hide such a big thing? And what about Hani's parents? They love June like a son, but Hani's mortified at the thought of them finding out. She advises June to find a job he doesn't hate first, then they'll figure out how to tell people. Feels to her like she's got another kid on her hands now. Heading home, Jun's asking about ramen. Hani's got some but tells him he's on his own for dinner. He tries to protest, but she's firm, she needs some space. Later, as Jun gets to work on that ramen, Hani's on the phone with Song-kyung, dodging questions about meeting Jun and keeping their encounter under wraps. Right after Hani wraps up her call, Jun's there, serving up the meal he's just cooked. He's practically bouncing on his toes, waiting for her verdict. She takes a bite, smiles, and tells him it's good. You can almost see the relief wash over him. But then, her phone buzzes. It's Dong-jin, checking in to see if she made it home okay. She texts back, letting him know she's safe and flips the conversation to ask about his glasses. As they're texting back and forth, Jun, who's been trying to play it cool, finally cracks and asks her who she's messaging so late into the night. He's wondering if it's the guy from earlier that day. Right on cue, Dong-jin's next message pops up, teasing about the umbrella incident. Just as Hani's about to reply, Jun makes a grab for her phone, reading the messages before she can stop him. Hani's not having it, yelling at Jun to hand it back, but Dong-jin keeps the texts coming, suggesting they bring Ran along on their next date to some kid-friendly spot he knows. The argument between Hani and Jun escalates quickly, with both of them raising their voices. Somehow, Hani manages to snatch her phone back and lands a playful hit on Jun's head, just as his own phone starts ringing. She's curious, asking if it's Song-kyung calling him, but when he says no, she probes further, wondering who's trying to reach him so desperately. Jun brushes it off, telling her not to worry about it and advises against giving Dong-jin her address. Meanwhile, Yenapeng is in her hotel room, dialing Jun's number over and over, but he's not picking up. She's come to terms with Ran being Jun's daughter, which, oddly enough, makes him more appealing to her. Yet, she can't shake the feeling that this revelation might push Jun further away from her, stirring up a mix of nerves and insecurity. She thinks about Hani and Song-kyung's friendship, pondering whether Song-kyung finding out about Jun and Ran might somehow work to her advantage. Cut to a lighter scene where Ran is dancing to some kids' music, with Deokjin watching her and Song-kyung chatting away with Yenapeng on the phone. Yenapeng's invited Song-kyung out for a meal, and Song-kyung's all in. When she hangs up, Deokjin's curious about the meetup, especially since Yenapeng's got her eyes on Jun. Song-kyung's all excited about Hani's blind date going well, which throws Deokjin for a loop. Song-kyung's already dreaming about celebrating two big happy events this year, but Deokjin's quick to throw a pillow her way, telling her to quit meddling. He questions how she could even think about setting Hani up on a date knowing full well Ran's in the picture. Song-kyung fires back, frustrated at his lack of support, reminding him of the challenges Hani faces as a single mom. Deokjin tries to point out that Jun's just next door if Hani ever needs help, but Song-kyung's not buying it, questioning if Jun's supposed to be Hani's personal bodyguard. Their argument heats up, with Ran quietly observing the whole scene. Song-kyung vents about Jun moving next door and the odd rumors swirling around Ran's daycare. She's convinced she needs to find both Hani and Jun suitable partners, despite Deokjin's pleas to stay out of it. Song-kyung insists on taking care of Jun, reminding Deokjin of his promise to look after him until he's married. The conversation ends with Deokjin walking out, leaving Song-kyung to reflect on her promise to her late father and her commitment to her husband once Jun is settled. Amidst the tension, Ran tugs at her shirt, expressing her dislike for the fighting. Song-kyung promises Ran, with a hug, that she'll try to keep the peace. The next day turns out to be one of those where everything runs late. Hani rushes to Ran's daycare, only to find out that Jun's already picked her up. The teacher tries to explain the situation, mentioning she couldn't get a hold of Hani, and even though she initially refused Jun, Ran's insistence on leaving with her dad tipped the scales. Hani's a bit taken aback but makes it clear that she should be the first point of contact next time. Then, in a surprising turn, the teacher brings up her brother's behavior during the blind date, revealing her bewilderment at his aversion to single mothers given his own status as a divorcee. Hani's surprised by this new info but decides to keep the high road, simply wishing the teacher's brother finds happiness. Back at Hani's place, Jun and Ran are having a mini mirror moment with their juice boxes. Ran's bubbling with energy, eager to play, but leaves the how up to Jun. He suggests reading a book, and she's all for it. While searching for a book, Jun stumbles upon an album titled Ran's Growth Album, and curiosity gets the better of him. With Ran comfortably seated on his lap, they dive into the album together, flipping through pages filled with moments he's missed, from ultrasound images to Ran's first steps. It's an emotional roller coaster for June, culminating in tears when he spots the photo from Ran's first birthday. He's moved, asking Ran if she'd like to add a new photo with him to the collection, and of course, she says yes. Meanwhile, Hani's been trying to reach June, puzzled by his silence. When she finally arrives home, the sight that greets her explains everything. June and Ran, asleep together on the couch, are a picture of peace. As she tiptoes closer, she accidentally nudges the album with her foot. Picking it up, she quickly browses through it, then settles down to watch them sleep. Observing them so closely, Hani can't help but notice the striking resemblance between father and daughter, a thought that leads her down a path of what-ifs about revealing her pregnancy earlier. Despite her initial reservations, seeing them together now fills her with a warmth she hadn't anticipated. She dozes off, comforted by the thought of relying on June more than she expected. Hours later, June wakes to find Hani asleep on the table. Carefully, he moves Ran to ensure she continues sleeping comfortably, then turns his attention to Hani. Watching her sleep sparks a series of imagined scenarios in his mind, from the mundane moments of daily life as a family to more intimate, dreamy sequences. Just as he's lost in his daydreams, Hani wakes up, catching him off guard. Her immediate shushing, mirroring his imagination, sends him into an even deeper blush. He's all set to leave, and even though Hani offers him to grab a bite before he goes, he's not having any of it and makes a beeline for the door. But then, he pauses, turns around, and drops the news that he's planning to put his place up for rent next week. Hani's puzzled, asking if that's really necessary. He gets all serious for a moment and says it's because he genuinely loves Ran. He dreams of buying her cute outfits, playing with her, and treating her to delicious meals. He wants to give her everything he missed out on, but he's out of a job. After he heads out, Hani's left talking to herself, musing about how Ran seems pretty taken with June. Just then, her phone lights up with a message from Dong-jin, wondering if the reason she hasn't given him her address is her way of saying no. She quickly shoots back a message, agreeing to meet him at the restaurant instead. After a bit of back and forth, Dong-jin throws out the idea of ditching the restaurant for Hongdae, known for its vibrant nightlife. It's been a hot minute since Hani last visited Hongdae, especially after hearing about Dong-jin's marriage and his band days coming to an end. She ends up turning down the Hongdae plan, not wanting to stay out late because of Ran, so they settle on a restaurant in Hongdae for 2 p.m. the next day. Hani can't help but feel that diving back into things with Dong-jin might be too much for her plate right now. So, she decides she'll have to let him down gently, pondering over how she's going to break the news as she sits next to a sleeping Ran, who accidentally kicks her mid-sleep. The next morning, she's knocking on Jun's door, asking if he can watch Ran while she steps out. Jun's quick to connect the dots to Dong-jin, questioning whether she's reigniting an old flame or if they're already an item. Hani keeps it vague, telling him she'll do what she needs to do and asks if he's up for watching Ran or if she should bring her along. Jun's response is to tag along. Their debate is cut short when Ran dashes toward the elevator, right as Yenapang steps out. Yenapang, all smiles, scoops up Ran, calling her adorable, then turns her attention to June, clearly puzzled by her unannounced visit. Hani, sensing the tension, suggests she'll take Ran to give June and Yenapang some space. Yenapang, catching wind of Hani's plans, expresses her interest in tagging along to Hongdae. She then volunteers to stay back with Ran and June, imagining it as a chance to grow closer to Ran. Ran seems on board with the idea, and Hani exits with a wave, leaving June in a mix of frustration and confusion. Yenapang, still keen on the Hongdae idea, convinces June and an excited Ran to head out. Fast forward to Hongdae, and Jun's navigating through the crowds, exhausted, with a sleeping Ran in his arms, thinking he's on his last leg, while Yenapang follows behind. She offers to take Ran, but Jun's not having it and suggests a pit stop at KFC, which doesn't exactly thrill Yenapang. Meanwhile, Hani and Dong-jin are catching up over dinner at a restaurant in Hongdae, reminiscing about how much the place has changed, except for those iconic Boss spicy rice cakes. Dong-jin mentions he's moved nearby and proposes they grab dessert there, despite the feast they've just had. He even offers to drop her off after, ensuring they can enjoy their dessert on the go. Hani's trying to get a word in edgewise, planning to lay things out straight with Dong-jin, but he's already on a different page, wondering about his umbrella she borrowed. Turns out, She left it behind during her spat with June. Before she can steer the conversation back, Dongjin's all excited about catching a show by his old bandmates post-dinner. Hani can't help but ask if his ex would be around, learning she's long gone to Busan to continue her acting career. That leads them down a more serious path, with Dongjin sharing the tough times of their miscarriage and how he unfairly blamed her back then. He admits feeling low about how things went down but looks at Hani with admiration, praising her strength and warmth as a mother. He's so taken by her resilience that he pitches the idea of giving things another go, suggesting they meet 3 times before making any decisions. Hani, caught between her past affections for Dongjin and her current reality, agrees more out of respect for what they once had, wanting to end things on a positive note. Meanwhile, Jun's in Hongdae, lugging a sleeping Ran on his back while Yenapeng shops up a storm. He's mentally comparing the ordeal to his army days, questioning his sanity for bringing a kid along to such a bustling place. When he finally nudges Yenapeng to wrap it up for some food, she's all in for trying Hongdae's famed spicy rice cake she spotted on Facebook. Post-dinner, Hani and Dongjin are on the move again, with Dongjin keen on seeing more of Ran through pictures. Just as Hani shares a snapshot, they bump into June, Yenapeng, and a still snoozing Ran. The surprise encounter throws everyone off balance, especially Hani, who can't hide her frustration at June for bringing Ran to such a crowded spot. Dongjin, unfazed, greets Ran and then turns his attention to June, recognizing him as Deokjin's brother-in-law from his school days. The introduction is awkward, thanks to Ran being in Jun's arms, leading to a light-hearted moment as Dongjin attempts a handshake. Yenapeng urges Hani to continue her date, assuring her of Ran's safety with them. But before any plans can solidify, the skies open up, prompting a quick shuffle as Dongjin takes Ran, suggesting they head to his car. Just as they're about to split ways, Jun interrupts, his protective side flaring up. He confronts Dongjin, insisting they head home together, leaving no room for argument as he steps up, practically nose-to-nose with him. In the midst of all this, Hani points out that Jun's actually on a date with Yenapeng, who chimes in, saying she's starving and asking if they're still on for those spicy rice cakes. Jun suggests grabbing them to go and tells Dongjin to hold up a sec. Dongjin's like, hey, we might not all be heading in the same direction, but Jun's quick to mention he lives right next door to Hani. Fast forward to them in the car, and it's super quiet, kinda awkward, until Dongjin breaks the ice by asking Jun his age. Hani jumps in, saying Jun's 4 years younger than her. Then Dongjin's curious about what Jun does for a living, and Hani, trying to dodge the question, suggests playing some music instead. Jun's sitting there, stewing, wondering if Dongjin's bringing this up because he knows Jun's out of a job. The music choice? An oldie about folks stuck in an elevator. Jun can't help but tell Dongjin his music taste is ancient, but Dongjin just laughs it off, saying he loves songs he can sing along to. Yenapeng leans into Jun, suggesting the songs like their own story, which totally catches Hani off guard. Jun's confused, asking Yenapeng what she means, and she brings up their own elevator mishap, hinting she might use this to edge out Hani. Jun clarifies it was just an accident and asks Dongjin to kill the music, with Hani echoing the request. With the tunes off, Dongjin wonders aloud if Jun and Yenapeng have been an item for a while, noting they seem to match well. Jun's quick to correct him, saying it's not like that, while Yenapeng reminisces about their past dates and then compliments Dongjin and Hani as a good pair, making Dongjin smile and thank her. Dongjin then throws a curveball, asking Jun how he'd feel about Dongjin dating Hani. Jun's all, why does my opinion matter? If you like someone, that's all you need. Dongjin nods, agreeing, and looks at Hani, saying as long as one person's into the other, it's cool. Jun then teases Dongjin, saying he's gotta step up his game because Hani's not one to play hard to get, she's pretty chill around him. He starts spilling about how Hani used to act around her crushes, but Hani cuts him off, not wanting to relive her embarrassing moments, especially not the time she almost got too drunk over Dongjin. Yenapeng whispers to Jun to zip it, and he whispers back, puzzled about what he did wrong. Right then, Ran wakes up, announcing she needs to pee, which leads to a mini crisis since they're in the car with no bathroom in sight. Hani's asking Jun if he brought a diaper, and he's clueless, while Ran's getting more upset by the second. Hani's looking for a plastic bag, Dongjin's got none, and just as Ran can't hold it any longer, Jun grabs Yenapeng's bag of spicy rice cakes for an emergency solution. By the time they reach the apartment, Ran's had an accident, and Yenapeng's spicy rice cakes didn't survive the ordeal. Hani's apologizing to Dong-jin, offering to clean his car, but he's chill about it. Ran, upset, admits to Jun she wet herself and calls him dad, leaving Dong-jin pretty shocked. Jun's all business, saying he's off to change Ran, while Yenapeng says bye to Dong-jin. Before Dong-jin leaves, he starts to ask Hani if Jun's really Ran's dad but decides against it last minute, just telling her to head up too. She gives him a smile, tells him to drive safe, and thinks she'll fill him in later. Back at Jun's place, Yenapeng's waiting while Jun takes care of Ran. She's just sitting there, thinking how tough Kid Care is, feeling a mix of hunger and frustration over how the day went down. It wasn't even a proper date, and here she is, dealing with all this. And through it all, Jun was just focused on Ran. So, Hani waltzes into the apartment and is immediately on the lookout for Jun. Yenapeng, who's right there, points her in the right direction but not without throwing a curious glance about them sharing passcodes. Hani, trying to switch gears, casually drops that it's actually Jun's birthday today. Talk about timing, right? Just then, cue Jun and Ran making their grand entrance from the bathroom. Hani's all like, time to hit the road, kiddo, but Ran's having none of it. She plants herself right at Jun's feet, declaring she's team dad tonight. Hani, not in the mood for negotiations, raises her voice a notch, and Ran scampers over to her side pronto. Jun, sensing some icy vibes, asks if he's the reason Hani's got that cloud over her head. Hani, keeping it short, says they'll chat later, throws a quick bow Yenapeng's way, and bam, the door slams shut behind them. Left to the awkward aftermath, Yenapeng quizzes Jun if the Hongdae trip is what got Hani all ruffled. Jun, ever the peacemaker, offers up some ramen magic, only to find his pantry ramen-less. He's all set to dial up some delivery when Yenapeng insists she wants the homemade special. Jun's solution? Let's borrow some from Hani. Yenapeng's response? A flat-out nope, claiming she'd rather starve than cross that doorway again. Jun, puzzled by the sudden tension, probes a bit deeper, asking Yenapeng point-blank if there's something more between him and Hani. Yenapeng, not one to mince words, lays it out. She knows Ran's his kiddo and wonders why he's still orbiting Hani if there's no spark there. Jun's taken aback, asking how she pieced that together. Yenapeng's all, how could I not, pointing out Hani's dating scene as a clear sign she's not seeing Jun as anything more than, well, Jun. Diving deeper, Yenapeng suggests maybe it's time Jun considered supporting Hani and Ran from a distance, maybe even tagging along with her to China. Then she hits him with the million-dollar question, is tying the knot with Hani on his mind, with her stepping into the mom role for Ran? She's all in, promising she'd be ace at it. Jun, caught in the headlights, begs her to drop the subject. Yenapeng, heart on her sleeve, confesses she dropped everything for this, scared to lose him again. Jun tries to smooth things over, saying he hasn't been ignoring her, just tangled up in his own feelings. Yenapeng's ready to help him sort through the mess, but Jun's firm on one thing, Ran's his priority, and he can't just sideline Hani. When Yenapeng presses if he's got feelings for Hani, Jun admits she's family, but love? That's a puzzle he can't solve yet. Yenapeng decides it's time to retreat, planning on hitting up her hotel's room service. As she heads out, she leaves Jun with a reminder of her never-give-up attitude, leaving Jun floored and alone. The next day, Songkyung and Yenapeng are breaking bread at Yenapeng's hotel, trading stories about their backgrounds. Yenapeng shares about her globe-trotting parents, currently chilling in Hong Kong, and draws parallels to her own journey chasing after Jun. Songkyung, playing the role of Jun's unofficial guardian angel, dreams of him finding happiness with someone as vibrant as Yenapeng, envisioning a future filled with laughter and little ones. But Yenapeng catches a snag. Songkyung's unaware of Jun's surgery and his potential hesitations about expanding his family. Despite this, Songkyung is convinced of Jun's desire for more kids, given his adoration for Ran. Songkyung then asks Yenapeng if she's the one who doesn't want kids, but Yenapeng clears the air real quick, saying it's not about her not wanting kids. She's actually worried Jun might have some issues in that department. That's when Songkyung drops a bombshell, she herself can't have kids. She's been down that road, tried for ages, but eventually had to accept it wasn't happening for her. That's why she's got this big hope pinned on Jun, wanting him to be the dad she never could be, kinda to fulfill a promise she made to her late father. Yenapeng's caught in a bit of a spot, thinking maybe it's not the best time to drop the Ran bombshell on Songkyung. But she's also feeling the clock ticking on making Jun see her in a different light, especially with Hani and Dong-jin potentially hitting it off. She let slip to Songkyung that she spotted Hani out with her date, and they seemed pretty cozy. Songkyung's intrigued but mentions she heard through the grapevine that the date was a bit of a flop. Yenapeng adds that the guy, Dong-jin, is actually an old buddy of Deokjin's, which kinda takes Songkyung by surprise. That evening, while Yenapeng's wrestling with getting Ran to eat something, Jun comes barging in, hauling a heavy box, dropping the news he's planning on moving his stuff out bit by bit. Then Yenapeng hits him with another curveball, Ran's running a fever and being super stubborn about eating. Jun steps up, promising he'll handle the feeding. Ran, though, isn't having any of it and instead pleads for a piggyback ride. Out of nowhere, Hani gets buzzed by Songkyung, who's straight up asking why Hani didn't mention bumping into Dong-jin. Hani's caught off guard, wondering how Songkyung got wind of this, only to find out Yenapeng spilled the beans. Songkyung's all questions, wondering if Dong-jin's single and if there's going to be a round 2. Hani plays it cool, saying it was just a chance encounter over dinner. Songkyung's advice? Hang on to Dong-jin. Their call gets cut short when Deokjin makes his entrance. Meanwhile, Dong-jin's burning the midnight oil with his crew, who suggests switching up the scenery to a themed motel, specifically the jungle room. Dong-jin's hit with a flashback of meeting Hani there and remembers she was with Jun, which sends him scrambling out the door, promising to foot the bill for the room. Back at Hani's place, she and Jun finally manage to get Ran fed, medicated, and tucked into bed. Jun's complaining about his back being drenched from the earlier piggyback adventure. Hani gives him a once-over, then playfully smacks him on the back, urging him to shower. Suddenly, Jun's in pain, but not where you'd expect, he's feeling it somewhere a bit more personal. He tries to brush it off his back pain, but inside, he's all kinds of flustered by Hani's touch. Then, Dong-jin calls, and before Hani can even respond, Jun snatched the phone, telling Dong-jin Ran's sick and they're in for a long night, then hangs up. Hani's fuming, accusing Jun of sending the wrong signals to Dong-jin. Jun flips the script, asking what's there to misunderstand, then goes in for a kiss. After the kiss, Hani's blushing like crazy. Jun lets her know that he doesn't want her seeing Dong-jin because he's Ran's dad. Hani's quick to remind him that's all he is to her, Ran's dad, not a man, but Jun's not having it. He tells her it's time to see him as a man and suggests they start dating. Hani's taken aback, questioning if she's even his type. When he says yes, she challenges him, pushing him against the wall, ready to show him what a real kiss is like. Jun goes red in the face, asking her to hang on a sec. She can't help but call him out, "You're such an idiot," telling him to cut the act. She's about to say more, but he quiets her with a kiss, first on the forehead, then the cheek, and finally, her lips, catching her so off guard she hiccups. He wishes her a good night, leaving her standing there, cheeks on fire. As he steps outside, he's practically shaking from the pain, thinking if he had hung around any longer, he would have hit the deck. Meanwhile, Dong-jin's in his car, mulling over that call from Jun. He's piecing things together, wondering if there's more to Hani and Jun than meets the eye, especially with Yenapeng thrown into the mix. He decides to get the lowdown himself and dials Hani. She's staring at the ringing phone, then over at Ran, out like a light but sick as a dog. The thought crosses her mind to invite Dong-jin in, but then those kisses from Jun flash through her head, and she's shaking it like a Polaroid picture. The phone buzzes again, and this time she answers, catching Dong-jin off guard. She explains she can't step out, what with Ran being sick and Jun already back at his place. She's all apologies, urging him to just spill what's on his mind. But Dong-jin's like, not over the phone, and tries for a rain check at a concert by his old bandmates. She's not biting, though, weeknights are a no-go. They settle on maybe catching up over the weekend, and she hangs up, leaving Dong-jin staring at the moon, all revved up about giving love another shot, promising himself he won't let it slip away this time. Cut to Yenapeng, putting herself together while chatting up her contact in China. He's telling her to pack it up and come back, but she's having none of it, reminding him she didn't ask for a timeout but handed in her walking papers. He tries to remind her of her drive, the same one that got him to the top, wondering aloud if that's why she's going all in on Jun. She cuts the conversation short, sets on her path with Jun, and ends the call. Right then, room service knocks, bringing in food and wine. She's got plans, asking the guy if he can doll up the room with flowers and candles, aiming for a vibe that screams proposal. He's curious about the occasion, but she lays it out, she's setting the stage for something big. Meanwhile, Jun's battling his own demons with a push-up marathon, trying to work through whatever's got him all twisted up inside. The moment he stops feeling like he's been run over, he calls it quits. But then, memories of Hani flood back, and he's back on the floor, pushing up until Yenapang's call breaks the cycle. She sounds like she's about to jump out of her skin, telling him to race over to the hotel, stat. He's up and into his clothes in a flash, worried sick about her. Over at the hotel, Yenapang's laying her cards on the table, ready to go all in tonight if she gets the chance. As Hani sits there, her mind wanders back to a time when she and Jun were just high school seniors. She remembers how Jun, in the throes of teenage rebellion, would often find solace in sneaking into her room after his all-too-frequent spats with his dad. There's this one night that sticks out in her memory. She was hitting the books hard when she caught the familiar signal from Jun opening her window. She saw him, battered and bruised. Helping him inside, she could see the toll his father's actions had taken on him that night. When she asked if his dad had been drinking again, Jun only wanted to know if Song-kyung was around, mistakenly thinking she might be at the reading room. Hani knew better. Song-kyung was working her shift at the convenience store, but she didn't have the heart to tell Jun that. Instead, she promised to text Song-kyung and offered to whip up some ramen for Jun, whose stomach was audibly protesting by then. But as she made her way to the kitchen, she stumbled upon a heartbreaking conversation between her parents about divorce. They believed staying together for her sake was the only option, a revelation that cut Hani deeply. She was ready to confront them head-on, but Jun held her back. Back in the safety of her room, they sat in silence until Jun mused about the complexities of adult relationships. Feeling betrayed by her parents' facade of happiness, Hani declared her refusal to follow in their footsteps, hinting at a drastic decision against moving to Seoul or even continuing her life. Jun, in his gentle way, tried to steer her away from confrontation, not out of allegiance to her parents, but from a place of understanding and envy for what she had, despite everything. His own longing for a mother's love and a life free from his father's harshness was palpable. That night, choosing ramen and each other's company over despair, they made silent vows, Hani, to never marry if it meant living like her parents, and Jun, to be the father he never had. Now, with those memories fresh in her mind, Hani can't help but wonder about their future happiness. The road ahead seems cluttered with hurdles, Song-kyung's unspoken expectations and Yenapang's sudden presence. She ponders if maybe Jun would find happiness with Yenapang instead. Upon arriving at the hotel, Jun is met with an urgent Yenapang who swiftly ushers him into her room, adorned for what appears to be a celebration. Confused, Jun questions if it's her birthday, only to learn it's an occasion far more significant. After sharing a toast, Yenapang takes a bold step, kneeling before him, and asks him to marry her, vowing to make him happy. OMG! What do you think is going to happen next? If you want us to continue, please comment Jun below. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, ciao.